Hey, Elle.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I restarted it because I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was trying to change the title and it wasn't working. So I wanted to make sure we started out on the right foot before things got too crazy. But I do
Right.
agree with what he was saying about white fragility, and I still sensed a bit of it in the conversation.
Yes, I did as well.
Yo, oh my gosh, that was okay. I bet when I was younger, I probably would have been able to sit through that. I'm not gonna lie. I probably should have tried harder to watch it, but I really couldn't. It was too cringy for in my eyes. I couldn't. It's like I didn't see the the genuine emotion behind it. You know what I mean? It's like they'll never really know, like he said, because it doesn't affect them, and it's all over. It's like in big letters and everything that they pointed out, and the way that they explained it, it's just ingenuine. It didn't sound like they really understand.
Yeah, like Pete Ski said, he said it perfectly when he said there were no tears. So you know it wasn't a real deep, meaningful conversation.
Yeah, I felt they were intellect. This is hopefully the right way to say it. I felt they were intellectualizing racism and
Hmm.
the emotion. And this is the damn problem I go through all the time when I get into these talks. I'm I'm not an empath, but I feel you. You know what I'm saying? I feel you, and I'm not feeling anything as you speak. I'm only feeling aggression, anger, excuses and well, what about this and what about that? I speak
Uh-huh.
to white people too as well, and that conversation comes up and it's like, what about this? And then it turns into politics. And it's like, oh shit. So how can you really care? Yeah, it does. It goes politics all the time. I'm 51 years old, y'all. You know what I mean? I've been, I've had my life experiences, but um, yeah, I'm hoping for Gen Z and, and millennials to kind of take it to where it needs to go. I don't know if Gen X is mature enough to reflect and admit to the wrongdoing of what we've been supporting in our generation.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you all heard me when I said earlier, right before we went to this show. I need two things from white people that claim that they're not racist. One, I need them to tell me about what white people talk about when there's no people of color around. And two, if they say that they are not racist, I need them to stop the ones who are, right? And if they can't give me concrete examples, then I know that it's not coming from a place of truth. And I've gotten some intel, you all.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think only one of them, I think that's why I kind of appreciated the lady that I referred to earlier. I'm going to have to go back and get her name, but I feel like she was the only one that was, well, her and the teacher, but she was like namaste, kind of like passionate about activism, I guess. But this lady was
So,
passionate and she was honest in saying that it's not something that I think the thing about white allies is they try to say, yeah, and then I completely just never did it again. And I was never around somebody, like, the situation never came up again where I was going to have to be challenged or tested or and I might have done the wrong thing. After I learned the knowledge, I was perfect, and it's a part of that white supremacy feel again. So you don't have to continue to learn. You want to reach a point of learning to where you can then go back to just being on top. And that honesty about the fact that kind of to Vip Trans point is some of them were honest in being like, I had to realize that just because this is not something that I see or experience, it doesn't mean that it's not real. And a lot of people refuse to connect that and connect it consistently. And I think that I was having a conversation once, and somebody said instead of saying white allies or allies, I would like you to be like accomplices or partners in crime, because An ally, if you think about it in a war sense, can just be somebody that stands off in the distance and says, I support you, but you're still the one in battle, fighting, going hard by yourself, you know? So I think that that's a situation where we need more white partners in crime that are willing to take the fall, opposed to just be subtle in their support. And I think I didn't see as much as that as I would have wanted, but I definitely feel like I was glad that the people that I did see representing that in the talk were there.
Well, I'm happy that you all got a chance to see it, and that's why I kind of kept up with you about this particular video because you could smell the BS. You could smell, and you'd have a different opinion. And to be honest, just being on this app, I have so much more of an appreciation, specifically for African American women, as I've been saying it, because it appears you're the standard bearer. And I'm not saying men ain't shit, but I'm just saying your intellect, as I say, mental dexterity is beautiful. It's powerful. It's intimidating. It's the fine line. I wish we had men speaking as women do, and I'm really appreciative that you could see it because the way I see it, I want everybody to get along. I want people to also communicate with each other, but the fine line of bullshit you could smell, and I really appreciate that because believe it, yesterday and today, as I come on here, and you mentioned it, Ali, that I learn a lot, and you're teaching me so much um, um, to understand more, to look clearer into the picture, and it's just such an honor and blessing, and it's just I appreciate you for playing the video. It means much more to me. I take people for what they are, character, etc. So when you speak, I'm listening to what's being said, and it's so good. And I hope everybody out there listening to this really tunes in and understand the problems and looks at the video and sees racism through a different perspective. Because this was an attempt, but wasn't an attempt, and it seems like it wasn't an attempt. It was more of PR, it appears, and that's the problem I'm kind of seeing right now.
Yeah, I think that systematic racism is so oppressive and is so scary that even the people that created it are scared of it. So being a true partner in crime is terrifying. And the same way they'll be like, well, if you felt that way, why didn't you just say something? You could say that to them because those are those situations where you're saying, well, what happens when there are no minorities around? And I had a friend that I think I told a story about her before. She was biracial. She was black and white, but her dad was like lighter toned. So she was like white passing. If anything, people thought she was maybe Hispanic, but they never assumed that she was black. And some of the things that she was able to get away with in these spaces is she told me that if she really wanted a job, she'd check white. But if she was neutral, she'd maybe say biracial or black if they had the option of biracial at all, if they didn't. So that was one space. And another thing that she told me is because she was white passing, in any moment that they felt like the people that she was around, at least at her work, so it wasn't her friends, her peers. She worked at I don't know the name, I can't remember the name, but they sold bouquets of flowers and stuff like that. And so she was just at her job, and because they felt like she was white, the things that they would say around her, to her, about other people, just always having these kind of off the wall remarks in a very lighthearted way, in which that you would think if she wasn't a minority, she was like, you would think it was normal, and I'm outnumbered, so I feel uncomfortable saying something. And that was her experience. So I know that there's an amount of this that is happening, and I don't think that they're definitely talking about it. And sorry, China, I know you had something to say.
No, you're good. I pretty much already forgot. Oh my god, and I'm dealing with the fussy dog, so yeah, you're good.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Elle just said, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I read her book, The ISIS Papers, right? And that would be my question. If I were to ask any of them a question, I would say, did any of you read Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's The ISIS Papers? And what are your thoughts on it? Because she really thoroughly unpacks racism, white supremacy, where it is, how it came to be, the symbolism, all of that. Like she really wrapped her arms around that in her race color theory. Um, but I also wanted to say that she had mentioned that she had a white professor, a white female professor friend, and her friend told her that in every social interaction, like any social interaction where it's nothing but white people, she said they talk negatively about Black people. And it's just automatically assumed that everyone is in agreement. And she said she was embarrassed to admit it, but it's true. And something I overheard in one of my past jobs, these were two white males joking with each other. They didn't know that I was in like a few offices over. And one of them was joking with the other one and said, "Oh, you now belong to me. You're part of our colony, or you're a part of my colony." So he was joking about being a colonizer. That's funny to them. And one of them was my boss.
Sorry to hear that. And it kind of felt this interview was like us going back, not us, but I'm gonna assume we went back to the workplace. These are the people we work among, and this is what they really think and how they really are. And that to me, because I'm in that type of corporate kind of environment, post COVID, I work from home, but is that type of environment where you see growth, but you can't really talk about policy much because everybody's so focused on procedure, and it's just blatant. And I was thinking this might open up a discussion because really, this video you all know already. Everything they've said was like, okay, let me do my nails. But the one part, and I didn't want to talk about it so early, was what about when the man said, I don't have to lose my self value in talking to other white people about racism. Did anybody catch that part? Did that stick out? I think it was more the heavyset man. How it was about white people not losing their self worth, their value, because they're talking about tough topics and racism being the topic, that it's a balance. It's also heavy on them. So,
Oh,
I'm
right. He was
curious.
saying being your own
Yeah,
friend.
what did you think
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
part? Was that like an empathy moment, or like fuck
I
that?
think
Sorry to curse.
that is tending to the white fragility because I've heard that in so
Okay.
many spaces where they're like, have you ever really considered how it makes white people feel? And like just being kind to them or being considerate of the fact that, this is hard for them too. And it was a very, like, it's so funny how in this day and age you know, where we can record them being violent. Now it's a way to then turn that abuse into psychological abuse and then use the same activist movement that we're creating to help ourselves to then be like, well, what about everybody? And I noticed that, Joyce, because you just had a talk and it was a Black woman talking about all lives matter on a subject that had to do with Black women, and it was like this undying nature. I don't know if that is, black women's nature to protect, a woman's nature to protect, or if it has to do with this right here, the nature of them creating this idea that if we want to be free, that we have to free everybody else first to prove that it's real. And so some of us have taken on that responsibility of, well, now we gotta, like, I have seen people that are not even advocates for themselves be advocate for stop Asian hate. And I've noticed that in a lot of the groups. You have all lives matter, you have anytime there was any kind of terrorist act on any group, like there was a terrorist act or there was a police beating on a Hispanic man, there was that shooting against the Asian parlor. So it's like anytime that happened, instead of there being this outrage for whites, it was, well, Black people, why aren't you protesting? So Black lives matter. Why don't Asian lives matter? Why don't Hispanic lives matter? And why don't the LGBTQ plus lives matter?
Correct.
Like, I am so
Correct.
tired of them being so unoriginal that they can't even make it like not obvious that they're stealing our plea for the oppression
Exactly.
to end and turning it into more oppression.
And I talk to Black Excellence for that, and you keep on. And me being in New York, and I haven't actually been to any balls or things like that. I guess money wise or no time wise or whatever it was. You keep the Black Excellence, and you keep that's true Black Excellence for me, because for me, Black Excellence is the standard. You do not break. You are what you are. You're on the front line in what you're doing. So to me, it's not your fault that other people are doing all that crazy, trying to copy what's already been established. It's a reality. Black Lives Matter. What's all the extra for? Where are we going? Why are we now deviating, breaking up, disorganizing, trying? Here we go again. This is a modern day example of what is. Whether the whatever the problem is already stated. Don't start piggybacking, and that's not that it's you're being laughed at while you're laughing at the people who are making the front. You're being laughed at. And this is why black is beautiful. You get if you follow, this is why black is beautiful. There's levels to this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even kissing nobody ass. But what I speak is a general sense of the truth of what is. And I love y'all for just being who you are, for just existence. And I can't do enough to and this ain't a kumbaya moment for me, never. But I feel you, and you see by this video, um, and you showed me by this video, just by the light stuff, just by what you said, that it's like an invisible glass there that just they can't hear you, and it's right there. It's just beautiful. Keep up the good work, for real. It gets me frustrated. I start getting mad.
Right, as it should. And I think that everybody here is doing what they should do. And I feel like a part of that fight is constantly distracting us from the fact of that plantation mindset. William Lynch, like we were talking about yesterday, take the mind, keep the body, is if we obtain the mind in a collective matter, then we'll realize that in any altitude, whether it's black men and black women as a combination or people of color as a combination, that we outnumber the oppressions that we face. And I think a lot of the fear is, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? And maybe it hasn't worked if there wasn't multiple people, but I've seen one person move mountains. I've seen a group of people move mountains, and I definitely feel like if we keep creating spaces where we can share collective thoughts and share information and speak amongst like-minded individuals, not people that agree with us, because I love when people change my mind. That means that you told me something that was thought provoking and hopefully life changing because I want to live better. So, not necessarily people that always agree with you, but people that are willing to hear you, learn from you, and also teach you in a manner that's not going to be condescending. So I want to go ahead and let China speak because I know every time you unmute, I start talking, and then I'm going to play the messages.
Oh no, I was you're good. I was not tripping at all. I was actually just admiring you guys and just the whole conversation because it's nothing but the facts. And I'm just glad that we can have a space to like where we can all get together and converse about these things because people don't talk about it enough. And I mean, there's all these other different points of views out there, yes, but I feel like they're all put out there to derail us unifying so that we can move the mountains that we need to move. I feel like it's happening on purpose, and I feel like it's happening a lot more often than it used to because I'm hearing a lot of self-hatred in these comments. I'm hearing a lot of things that it saddens me, and it makes me wish that people would heal and self-reflect and realize that there's other people out in the world and that to, together we will be able to do something big. Everybody doesn't have to fight as hard as they do. Everybody, man, I had to work 3 jobs since I was 15. Like, what am I like? It's probably gonna be 15 years. Me working 3 jobs. No wonder I feel like an old lady. Like, oh my God, we shouldn't have to do that. That's not normal. We weren't put on this earth to just work ourselves to death. Like, uh, I just feel bad because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm hustling over here, I'm on the grind. But I feel like that's not the flex that you want. I feel like you want to be able to like relax. You want to be able to spend time with your family. You want to flex about, the time you get to spend with your family, the memories that you get to create. That sounds like more of a flex to me than slaving away for somebody else, you know what I mean? For a dream that isn't even yours, no less. So, I mean, that's really all I really had to say about that because it's rough and it hurts my heart. So I just want people to understand that, you got to do what's best for you. And surprisingly enough, helping other people get this all together does help you, even though you don't think it does. You're all focused on you, but helping other people to get this goal achieved will actually end up helping you in the long run. And that's all I had to say.
As an Asian American, I accept that my Asianness makes me a gypsy. And I sort of ham that up. We just sort of move around to place and find a good place to put down roots. We stay there. But like a not very mature tree, we move on if we feel we need to. I was wondering what it was for like Hispanics and Africans and others who have to fight when the fight is very dangerous. A strategy I really want to employ is when I see policemen misbehaving, get on my phone, call 911 and say, I would like to report a case of police brutality. Get all the facts and then the situation and the name and ID numbers of the police officers. That's theoretical though, because as a gypsy, I tend not to play courageous.
Give it to mama. I freaking love that. Oh my gosh, you're a
That was
gypsy.
powerful.
Tell me
That was
more.
powerful. That was powerful. That was powerful.
Tell
Words
me
weren't
more,
powerful.
please. That excites me. I'm sorry. I feel like I was a gypsy in a last life, so I get it. I get it. I love that shit. Give me more stories. Go ahead, Elle.
Pete, you had something to say to that?
I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm interested if any of you understood what he was saying because I think I kind of fell in love with it and then I lost track. But it was powerful. The messages I think within the questions.
Yeah, it was very well stated. I wanted to say something about the video that we all watched. So the elderly white woman, she talked about how it's crucial and it's important for us to, or for businesses to be inclusive and have more people of color. And I would have liked to have seen them actually answer that question. Like, I want to know on your executive board, how many black women are sitting at that table? How many men of color? How many women of color? How many non-heterosexuals? Any disabled people? I would have liked to have known those stats right there, and then that would have opened up a conversation of, if there's too many white men, why? But I noticed they didn't talk about their own organizations. They just left it theoretically based of, yeah, let's do that. But are they actually doing that?
I would love to respond to that. I actually saw a clip and I will find it and send it to everybody after this because I have a couple thought-provoking questions that I would love it if you guys could send messages to, and then of course the panel respond to. But well, I'm assuming they're thought-provoking, hopefully. But I saw this video of this woman. She was a black woman that is working in this business, trying to specialize in blackness and black culture. And she was pointing out to Charlemagne the God, because she was on the Breakfast Club, about why they were not using the term diversity. And it kind of speaks again to what we were talking about prior to the messages about how inclusiveness is used to distract from the fact that black is the most oppressed. So in that way, when you say diversity in a situation where people of color are oppressed, but an Asian American opposed to a Black American is more likely to get a job. A Hispanic American or a Latin American opposed to a Black American is more likely to get the job. And that is not something that I necessarily have as like statistics. That's just my opinion based off of colorism and how I see the spectrum of how we group things and then categorize them in America. So I will say that if anybody has any
My
statistics on
my
that, we can.
experience, you're good. My experiences are exactly the
But
same. You are not wrong.
Okay. And I experienced that also because I live in Colorado. So in some places there are a lot of, I would say, um, first generation people, and there's a lot of first generation from Mexico, a lot of first generation from Ethiopia and Nigeria. Like there's a lot of people like that that are coming from that culture and merging into whatever this American culture is. And in that, um, I've noticed that there's this thing about being bilingual, and it only comes up when it's against a Latin or a Hispanic person versus a Black person, but the white people never have to be bilingual. So that's another cap on the job industry. And then the distraction is, oh well, it's the Hispanic and the Latins, but the reality is it's another way of putting us so close to each other that we can't see who's throwing the rocks. And I feel like in that experience, we see a lot of this downplaying of the colorism. Okay, so I just went on
yeah,
such a tangent. I lost my point, so I'm
no,
gonna go
you're
ahead and
good.
let it
You're
go.
good. No, you're good because okay. So picture this, and I was saying this before in Miami, blonde hair, green eyes, Puerto Rican. He's playing golf with Biff, Jiff, and Diff. And they say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How are you? What's your name? My name's Michael Ortiz. Hmm. Hmm. You can do all this and that. My name is Luis Ruiz. Now, the people in this position, in my opinion, and through discussion, because I know people who know rich people and so forth, it's like, it's not about you, it's about the people you're going to bring. And that's powerful because I'll tell you, like I said, I lived in the projects 20 years. There's so many different things I've done, heard, and angles from this and that. So imagine that you look Caucasian, but you have to say your last name is Ruiz. That's going to work. You know,
Right,
I'm just saying that's going to work.
and
So
You're right.
you can
You're
act
so
it. You
right.
got the sleeve. You got the what's them type of Levi pants and the espadrille, whatever you know. But you got to tell them your last name is Ortiz. Hey, I'm hanging around with Mike Ortiz. We talk about
Mm.
rich mansions and all. Who? Ortiz. I'm just saying. What do you think?
I wanted to say just real quick, I I realized my point again, and that is the how diversity is used to pin us against each other and then further oppress Black people. She was speaking about how she worked in different industries where she was the person that specialized in the diversity field, and she said you would say, let's bring in somebody from the LGBTQ plus community, and everybody would be like, yeah, awesome, we love it. And then you'd be like, let's bring in an Asian American. They'd be like, oh yeah, we love it. Latin American, oh yeah, we love it. And then Black American, and everybody shifts different in their seat. And well, okay, well, how are we going to make this? And well, still, well, I'm not sure. Like, are we going to be able to really sell this? And it still always becomes a different conversation, even when you're supposed to be inclusive and incorporating diversity.
Mm-hmm.
China, you had something to say?
No, I didn't. You had already said my point actually. You and PT worked it out, and I was like, oh, that was exactly what I was thinking. You guys basically took the thought out of my head.
Do you think it would have? I'm sorry.
The mention of the gypsy part from QueenChynaBurr. I've been to jails and mental hospitals over a dozen times each, and part of that almost felt intentional because I always looked forward to going because it got me out of my bubble and got me to learn from new and interesting people. And even in a cooperative like mental hospitals or adversarial like jails environment. I wonder if someone planted a seed. He told me, you shouldn't mentor someone because, like, what do you know about the rough life? I'm like, good point. Time to infiltrate. Lol.
I completely, I've, okay, so when I moved, when you travel, okay, and when you get out of your little bubble, you find out some things. Let me tell you something. You find out that the world is not what you thought it was. Or you find out, oh my God, that is so much worse than I thought. Or oh my gosh, like if you go to the Grand Canyon, oh my God, that's so much bigger than I imagined. So you have to be there to see it. You know what I mean? I can't, some people, they tell you their experiences, but you don't feel the emotion behind it. You don't see the whole picture unless you're there.
Sure.
So I just wanted to point that out because I feel like that's the huge problem with this whole video. This whole video was so triggering to me because I grew up around all these big time crazy rich white people, okay, that think they're just the shit, and I'm just like the scum of the earth, and I'm just supposed to do whatever they say, you know what I mean? And oh yeah, they tolerate me. Well, I moved there. They said first thing that I had a speech impediment, but I moved there from the ghetto, right? So I knew how to speak. There was nothing wrong with the way I spoke. It was just a different dialect than they knew how to understand. Well, how would they know that? They've been in their little bubble, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
they put me in like a little, quote unquote special class, special ed class. I'm smart, I was not a slow child. I felt so belittled. And I remember sitting there in the class like, why am I here? Like why? Because these white people decided that I had a speech impediment because I spoke a different dialect than them. And I literally was just an hour away from there. It wasn't even that far. So it's just like you you have to see it, you know what I mean? And that stuff like that is belittling, and
It kind of
it
feels
does.
like casual racism. I'm so sorry to interject. It kind
Yes.
of feels like casual racism, like, oh, you speak good Spanish or something like that. Or, I'm not going to sit next to you because your color skin or, just very nuances of stuff. But do you think it's more direct in the dealings of them? Because it just seems like it's just a part of culture to be that way. And this is crazy.
I was going to say that I had a similar experience, but it kind of goes in a I think it's a gentrification or like a secret segregation kind of thing, because I started school, I went to pre-K in Denver, and that's where a lot of the minorities are. And then I moved to Aurora, which is a little bit more, I guess, there's more white people. And I went to that school district, and it's literally like the guidelines are so weird. You could cross the street and all of a sudden you're in Denver. It's like, but there's not much of a difference other than the people that they let live there. And when I got there in first grade, they said I was behind because in the Denver school district, they didn't start teaching the kids to read until like first, second grade for whatever reason. But in the Cherry Creek school district, they started teaching their kids to read in kindergarten, pre-K, so I started out behind and had to, go talk to somebody different and, get taught, all the stuff that they were already taught the year before. And the only, like, obviously there was no intelligence problem, but the only difference was where I started and then where I ended up. And I mean, personally, I loved it. I didn't want to be in that damn class, and they gave me candy. So maybe I shouldn't have loved it as much as I did, but I didn't mind. But that was just like a regional, not a regional, but like a, wherever the most minorities was for, and that's still the case because I was working at a school And I noticed that it was just the way that they would treat the kids that were behind. Like, it was like an expectation. Like, if you see a kid that's not meeting expectations, you were okay with that. Like, you're like, yeah, most kids in his position, and it's kind of trying to stunt the growth early, just according to where you are. Just another one of those things that I think even Joyce said, like, if you're gonna, like, what are you doing though? Because these are the things that, I don't care about you sitting and talking to each other. I care about that, but it's like, what are you doing? What actions are you putting into place that you
I
have the power to
agree.
do to further those,
Oh my
things?
gosh. Why is it take why is it like that? Why do they have to derail us like that? Like we don't already have so many things against us. It's methodical and it's psycho. It's crazy. How are they supposed to be able to see that? How would they know that they've been doing that this whole time? They've been doing it without a blink of an eye, you know what I mean? They do it, man, just of a black man's fucking barbecuing at a different spot today. They blink and oh, next thing you know, they're on the phone calling 911. There's a man over here doing some suspicious stuff in this park. I need you guys to come over here. Like what? What was so triggering about this man just trying to cook on this grill? You know what I mean? Like just at a barbecue. Like they make up the craziest stuff. They'll do whatever they need to do to make sure they put a monkey wrench in anything that you have going on. Because when I was in second grade and they put me in those special classes, they were wasting my time. During that time, I should have been learning my math. I should have been doing stuff that normal second graders were supposed to be learning. All the way through my elementary years at school, they did that the whole time. So by the time I got to middle school, what the math? I was like, what the hell is this? They didn't teach me shit. What the hell is going on? I literally had to teach myself, or I was gonna fail. They don't. They That's what they wanted. So it's like stuff like that. That's so methodical. It's like, oh my gosh, what type of person do you have to be to come up with this stuff? Somebody who doesn't. I don't want to say doesn't have a soul, but I want to say it too, even though I just said it.
Mm. You good, you good, you good. Yeah.
Yeah, before we get into that, any last thoughts? I know Peasky, you unmuted. Any last thoughts? And Joyce, before I get to these messages?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm enjoying the experience.
Um, yeah, can I be heard?
Because
Can
I
you
can
all
hear
hear
you.
me?
Please,
Oh,
Miss
okay.
Joyce, I can
I
hear you.
just
Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say before we go into the messages, right? I'm sorry, y'all. I am how stereotypical. I am frying chicken, so you might hear that in the background, but yeah. Anyway, I wanted to say that sometimes when we ask like why are they doing this, what's going on, there's an inherent fear of white genetic annihilation. I think they know and understand that their genes are recessive. And when we think about how diabolical and savage and how global racism, white supremacy is, they had to set that system up in order to be in control. Because when you look at them globally, and this is why I don't use the term minority because it's not accurate when we're talking about people of color. It's accurate for them, but not for people of color. They have to artificially inflate their numbers by using Latinos, Arabs, Asians, and whoever else that would like to check the box of white, right? You don't do that when you're truly the majority. And when you're looking at a map of Earth, of planet Earth, it's overwhelmingly of color. And white is a tiny, tiny minority. They even made up a whole continent. Europe is not a real continent. It's not even real, right? But I guess when you circumnavigate and conquer and dominate everyone, you can make the rules. And I think we have to remember that this is this is their ancestors. Their ancestors literally circumnavigated the entire globe and raped and pillaged and colonized, right? And are still in a position of power and control today. So
They
where do
turn the
those
map
thoughts
upside down.
go? Where do those thoughts go? Like, where do those thoughts go? And then on the flip side to that, the people who were conquered and dominated, where do those thoughts go? Right? So you have internalized superiority, which is what they talked about briefly, but then you also have internalized oppression, which is what a lot of people of color have. So I'll go back on mute. I don't want to talk too long. I know we have a lot of messages.
I'd like to add to that real quick that internalized capitalism too as well. When you're putting so much time into work and you're not focusing on your health, you're
Right,
putting yourself out.
capitalism, religion. Oh my God,
Yeah,
both of them.
yeah, exactly.
Hello, Ellie. Hello, how you doing? Hello, Joyce F. Hello, buying up everything or all whatever. I can't see all your name. What's up? How you doing? Pete Ski. Hey there, sir. And hello to everyone in the audience. The listeners. I just wanted to say hi. That's all. How you
Thank
guys
you.
doing? Um,
Everyone.
are the oppressive people being honest with themselves? That is a good question. I'm going to stick around and just listen for a minute.
Hey, TT, before I get back into
Thank
the other
you.
messages, just to let everybody know in case you missed the beginning, the link above is a video of some, white people talking about their privilege and racism and how they combat it. And we observed it, we appreciate it. We also observed some white fragility, and that's kind of like the summed up thoughts that we were going off of. Now we're just kind of talking about the construct of racism altogether. And I do have a way that I want to relate that back to the video if you want to tune in and see that or send any messages on what you think about the topic above, because we are going to get back to that.
Yeah, so I'm sure I've mentioned a few times I went to a PWI, and so while I was there, I had a professor who felt like a mentor, and I really opened up to her. You know what I'm saying? We got deep. I told her about a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And this was a white professor, and one in a PWI. But yeah, surprising the black professors and the black faculty didn't really mess with me that heavy. But the white professor, who I thought was a really great mentor, she gave me all this access across the campus. I got to access things I would have never accessed by myself. Then after college, it kind of dwindled out, and then when I had the divorce, it was just completely done. So I don't know. I also heard stuff from other black students that work with her, and they're like, no, she's no good. And I was just like, wow. When I was there, I was the teacher's pet, but in reality, I was just a token, and that's just a terrible feeling to have. But at least I got the access, right? At least I got to experience what the other side sees, right?
I do think that part of the knowledge is knowledge and versatility. Uh, Kind of one experience that I have like that, and then I'll let anybody else comment if they want to before we get into Say's messages. Um, is I'm bisexual, and at the end of my high school period, this is just to speak on the duality of understanding both sides. Um, I was, I guess, what people would consider a stud or masculine presenting. That's just how I felt comfortable dressing. There's still times where I feel comfortable dressing. I feel comfortable, but people would call it masculine or stud like. But I would have, and at the time I was what you would consider Christian. I hadn't really got into my spirituality. I had just really discovered my horoscope and what that even meant. So I really wasn't into it. I was just, you know, I beat myself up the most over being bisexual, being a Christian. And I had so many different experiences where people would just look at me and discuss. You have all these conversations with dudes like, "Oh, why you want to be like that? It's just a waste." And then I've had so many people. The most hurtful thing that happened to me in that time period was having people come up to me and pray, for me, unprovoked and backhanded. Because I was at the time I was Christian, so it felt so. Oh, I felt so bad. It still kind of hurts that, they felt that supremacy of, that category of, oh, well, you're gay and I'm straight, so I'm above you. I'm just trying to help you. You need help, which we've seen in religion dominating and terrorizing people all over the world, that we've seen that before. But that was like the most hurtful thing to me. And then as I got a little bit older, I started discovering makeup, and I was just like, oh, okay, I like this. And I started, I guess, dressing more feminine. And the complete difference in the way that people treated me was, it was so different. Like, it was completely off the wall how different the people were treating me, how nice everybody all of a sudden wanted to be. And I got to see on both sides how different it is. And even then, being like bisexual as feminine presenting, people always see that as an opportunity for them sexually, rather than being quote unquote disgusted by it, how they seemed when it felt like they weren't going to get an opportunity to be a part of it.
Religion is really triggering to me, and so is philo. Violet, your whole comment was triggering to me. I'm not gonna lie. It was bad. It was really bad. But I mean, that that just comes with the territory of being black. Honestly, you can't get around that. There's you got to deal with the religious part. You got to deal with the capitalism part. You can't really escape racism. You know what I mean? Even though it's told to you over and over again. Oh, there's no such thing. You're not crazy. If you feel a type of way after something happened, you know when you've been done dirty. You feel it. You feel it in your soul. You feel it right there in your chest. You're like, wow, that just happened. You can't invalidate that. There's no way.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and invite DJ up, and then I'm going to play the messages.
Hi, panel. Ellie, Joyce, Queen, buying up all the things, and
Thanks for letting me
Pete,
on.
Ski, and everyone else in the room. I've been listening quite curiously for a little while because I didn't just want to jump in 2 feet first. I haven't watched the video that you tagged here, which says white people talking about to white people about racism. First thing I would say is, what is the construct of white? For me, these monolithical expressions of black, white, and whatever have you don't necessarily signify anything but exclusion. And it's in the language of what it is that's presented that allows us to understand who we are and where we come from. Black does not exist. Black is a color. When you talk about Asians, you talk about Asians. When you talk about white people, you're talking about Caucasians. And they all have. And the historical narrative of each one is significant to how we view ourselves or how others view us. And we need to, and this is just a suggestion, I think we need to claim our identities for our own realities and live in the fullness of that identity. Because the shift that we're seeing now, where everyone's like, oh, well, I'm not what you think I am, and I'm very different. And these trends of appropriation and assimilation and reappropriation, they exist for reasons outside of other people's individual understanding. You can't be talking about something as if it doesn't exist, as if reasons for these things don't exist outside the construct of your own initial understanding. We are all each other, Caucasians included, people of African descent included. The reality is we do not actually have a complete understanding, and nobody, no matter how they try and exclude you, nobody has the actual answer. The answer dwells in them understanding their humanity, and their humanity is a biased narrative that exists because of power constructs. But that's a whole different conversation for another day. I'm sorry I was rambling for a while, but there's a lot to unpack, and I really like what you panel are talking about. It's very impressive. I hope you guys are having a nice week, and I hope the rest of your week is kind to you and you are kind to your week. Have a great day. I hear what Joyce is saying about, their ancestors circumnavigated the earth and colonized a lot of territories. Yes, they did. The truth of the matter is, historically, Africans circumnavigated the earth, but they didn't colonize, they traded. Asians circumnavigated the earth far before Europeans did, far before Caucasians did. And what they did was trade and exchange culture and business. The difference is what Caucasians did was to spread insidious narratives and pillage. That comes from their Viking roots because that's how they knew how to expand territory. I'm not saying it didn't exist in the rest of the world, but there was a civility that's uncivilized in Caucasian narratives.
What's going on? Peace and blessings. Miss Elle Green, what's going on? Who up here hate Christianity and the Bible and things like that? You spiritual, right? Can you give me your definition of spirituality and what you believe? I'm a Christian, of course, and I pray for you. So I ain't here to fight. Peace and blessings to y'all. I'm just listening. Holla back.
Hey, Elle Green, I was about to ask, is it me or does it sound like it's a bunch of college students in the background screaming hella loud in a dorm room or dorm area or some shit? But I'm not gonna lie, Elle Green, it also sounds like somebody being butchered right now. It sounds like somebody getting chopped up in that bitch.
Okay, I have a question for everybody. What are you guys talking about? And I am so sorry, I just kind of got into the subject. What are we talking about? Question mark.
Click the link and
All
you'll
right, that
see.
was my bad. That was my bad. Somebody was outside screaming. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't me. I'm alright. So
So, for the dude who asked that question about what's our view on spirituality and just a little bit of Christianity, I just happen to say, damn, I can't talk. I just have to say, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian myself, but it's rare that I go to church. But yes, I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher power, but shifting away from the Christianity and touching on his last point of what's our view or what's my view on spirituality. I I think it's pretty much as simple as I can make it. It's something y'all have probably heard: mind, body, and soul. Pretty much with mind, make sure you have mental stability, and with soul, just make sure you're able to express yourself. With body, whether it's art or whether it's even something like a sport, and damn, it's just a lot. But yeah, I say with body, pretty much just died and shit, express, and
No, you're doing good, DJ.
yeah, it's hard to keep it soft, but yeah, that's what I have to say. Make sure you're mentally stable. Make sure you died, and just make sure you have that you can do to express.
Okay, well for me,
oh,
who was
sorry,
that?
sorry, sorry. Go ahead.
Was he still in here? Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I was
So
storm ready.
Storm Ready. Oh, of course. Hi, Storm Ready. How are you doing? Oh my gosh, I
Okay,
missed
so
you.
just real quick, I feel like we're kind of getting off topic. I told one story
Right.
about Christianity, and it seems like that's what we're focused on. So I just want
It's
to
a rabbit hole.
clarify. yeah, I was talking about the duality of seeing how certain people get oppressed when they wear it on their skin, basically, and saying the difference between a masculine presenting gay person, that it's obvious, or to some people it's obvious that I am in the LGBTQ plus community, opposed to when I'm feminine presenting and they don't know that, and they can't judge me off of that. So yesterday we were talking about intersectionality. That would be one point where, as a black woman, I face a bunch of oppression, but as a straight presenting black woman, I don't have to deal with that. That was kind of talking about that duality. And to answer Storm Ready's question, which is hopefully it's the last time I have to do, you said you come in peace, so I'm going to try to take that. Um, I don't hate Christians. Nobody here, I don't think anybody said that. I don't think I said that. I said that I was hurt because I was Christian.
I
Even
wasn't
now
speaking
in my
towards
spirituality,
just I
hold
was
on.
just speaking
Even
in
now
general.
in my, hold on. Even now in my spirituality, there are still times where I'm trying to figure out, do I still want to say God? Do I still want to say Jesus? Do I still, like, what do I want to, that's still something that is a part of my journey that I'm open about and open with and open to and learning and discovering. But there is no hate there for anything. So now that we can end that and get back on topic, and like I said, just to let people know what the video is about, just to summarize it, if you didn't watch it and don't have time to right now in the conversation, it was a bunch of scholars and white educators talking to each other about how they dealt with figuring out that they have privilege and contribute to racism or see racism, and how they went to combat that. The things that we were talking about is how that we appreciate that they were having the conversation. They made a lot of great points. There were some times where they didn't answer certain questions about diversity and so on and so forth, and then they also were displaying white fragility and trying not to say certain things or be kind still to the white listeners. And that's where we kind of ended on that. So, DJ, do you have a comment about that?
I was about to say I wasn't speaking to you. Speaking to you about the whole religion or Christianity thing. I was just speaking in general. But for something like racism of white people, I would have to say just all racism is bad, but not trying to be on no coon type shit. We still have to recognize that it's a problem. But the whole thing about white racism, it's a lot of reasons for it, but I say the core reason that there's white racism is that there is improper education of the mind, and also people don't really question why they're a part of an ideology. I mean, for a lot of ideologies, even like racism in itself, people people just go with the flow of their environment, not in a good way, but it's a bad flow of, like, if you got 10 people around you that do the same shit, even if you think in your head for just that one time this some lame ass shit, eventually you gonna stop thinking that and you gonna start doing the same shit as them, and it's gonna be natural for you. So with racism, if you're around 10, 20, or 30 racist people, either because you was born into it or you was raised around it, you're not gonna think that, hey, me being racist as fuck, I don't consider myself racist. This is how I've been thinking my whole life and I've never questioned it, so I can't be racist. In a nutshell, I'm gonna just say it. People don't think about why they're racist.
Yeah, that's not their first nature at all. They just do it. They're just like, oh, uh, don't even blink. Just like, oh, it's just
We
another
all get a
Tuesday.
roll of toilet paper when we shit. I mean, that's just something that come natural. Same as for racist people. Most racist people.
But it's the fact that they do shit like this. Uh, they know what the fuck they're doing. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. But
No.
they go and they do talks like this video, and they think
Hmm.
it's like apologizing to the black community, and that's all they have to do. I feel like they need to dive deeper than this, because the people in this video did not get the assignment.
Yeah.
Did
If
you
I
feel
could
they
say
was offended?
something.
I felt they were. I don't know. It was hard for me to read. Sorry to overtalk. Did you feel? I kind of felt unauthentic, and then I kind of felt a little bit of acting. It was kind of weird. It was like a
Yo,
script in a way.
that's your human instinct right there. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It was like a
we,
mix.
yeah, that's your intuition right there.
Yeah.
Good
If I
job.
could
Yeah.
say something. If I could say something, please.
Uh,
I haven't said something for a while. Thank you. What I wanted to say is, while the talk was a bit cringy, I will give credit where it's due, right? I don't know what it was about the whole George Floyd situation, but that helped racism in a way of some closeted racists or white people that were just very passive came out in droves and said, hey, wait a minute, this is a problem. And white people who would never talk about racism actually started talking about it. So I'll give them credit for the effort, because a few years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, you couldn't even get white people to even say the word racism. Some of them still don't even want to talk about it. So the fact that they came together and are white people talking to white people about racism, meaning they're not talking to people of color to pander to us and to placate the self-hating nature that a lot of us have, because a lot of us, or some of us, like it when they come to us and act like they care, and we lick it all up, right? And then nothing happens. I'm glad they're talking to each other about it. I just think they just need to move forward in actually doing action. Like I said earlier, what does the executive board look like at every single company that they work for or corporation? How many black women are sitting at that table? How many gay people? How many non-Christians are there? How many Latinos? How many Asian? And then when it comes to companies like Goldman and Sachs, that's what you need to do. Goldman and Sachs is spending millions to black women business owners. So it would have been nice to see them say, hey, we see what Goldman and Sachs did. My company's going to match that. Where are the black women business owners? Send an email here. We have some money for you. That's the kind of change I want to see. That's what's real.
I agree, Joyce. It's some type of a plan of action. Something is. I feel like they gave us like the bare fucking minimum with this, and I'm tired of getting the bare minimum. I'm tired. Black History Month is yay. You get the February, of course, but yay, Black History Month. Yes. No, we didn't even blink an eye. It's the shortest month of the fucking year. So didn't even blink an eye.
Right. And one of the elder women, I think Elle mentioned her, the elderly white woman who admitted that she still feels like she's better than people of color. She still feels like she's smarter and all of that. It's inherent, right? You don't own an entire group of people for hundreds of years and think that their predecessors or their descendants aren't going to feel the same way. Like it's in the bone marrow, just like it's in the bone marrow of a lot of us to see ourselves as less than and therefore feel like we're less than and then act like we're less than, right? But one of the key things she said was she still feels like she's better. So she doesn't respect Black authority. Okay, if we understand that that's how a lot of white people feel, give us money and let us have our own businesses. I'm perfectly okay with that. Because the microaggressions that we experience with working with them in corporate America, it drives a lot of us insane, literally and figuratively. It's not good for our mental health. So I'm perfectly okay with her giving Black business women some money so that we can have our own businesses, we can employ each other, and actually have it be fair. Because maybe it takes us to have fair hiring practices, because they don't do fair hiring practices. We know this.
I was gonna say I do notice that, like, a lot of I notice a lot of other cultures, like if they do get something, they hire a lot of their own, but I don't necessarily always see that amongst Black people, and I could be wrong, but you know, that is something that I feel like I said in that clip from The Breakfast Club, when we start thinking about diversity, it kind of plays into that whole coy of thinking about other people first and prioritizing the pleas and the plight of other people. And it it cripples us and keeps us from being able to fully make it where we're trying to go. And after DJ you go, I'm going to go ahead and play some messages, okay?
Okay. But I was about to say, touching on earlier how y'all were like having more of a discussion about racist people. I think from that it was two types of racists. The one who does it naturally and doesn't question, and then for the other one, I would have to say the fake racist. I mean, if you think about shit like gangs, you got two types of gang members who do it naturally because it's like, hey, that's just them, they was raised this way, and then ones who do the same shit as the real ones, but in the back of their mind they're like, I know this ain't me, but I'm doing this shit, so I guess it's me. So I say with racism, to knock this point out real quick, we got fake racists out here. We got actual people in the suburbs, in the ghetto, wherever, of all races, who will have a hatred towards a set of people, but it's all in the back of their all in the back of their head. They're either going like, I don't really believe this shit. In fact, I hate this shit, or they're going, I don't really believe this shit, but I just want to play both sides of the fence because I still want the system to be the same way it is with what amount of shit is in it. Basically, it's white people in the suburbs, black people, whatever, of all people of all races who will be like, hey, I mean, I'm gonna support this shit even though I don't believe it and it's based around my race. But hey, I'ma also be in front of the cameras being like, I think racism is wrong. People who play both sides of the fence. It was people who were going out to protest for BLM just to appear to look like they're not racist, and beneath the skin they are, and they eventually pulled it out, or they just faked it, whatever.
Like maybe they're too scared to show other white people that they're not into racism. Maybe something like that
Yeah,
because they tend to toss themselves under the bus when,
I'm
hey,
saying
like
this on
you
both
you believe
sides
this,
though.
you can get this smoke with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They be like that.
We got fake protesters and we got fake racists. It's like, damn, this world is so fucking confused. People do not know what they want to be. Should I be should I be a racist? I'm a fake
I
like
never
I'm.
thought about that. I always thought that they
Should,
were
yeah.
planted, like planted in
Should I be?
the
Yeah.
riots and stuff. You know how riots, quote unquote, start. It's usually the white people hidden in the crowds. I,
Yeah.
I was I was standing there and someone like lit a firework next to me and I looked and it was a white guy. So
Stop
the
saying white. Just say God.
it was a white guy. Sorry, my bad.
No, just
Why would I
allow
lie to you?
people to just allow people to think that anyone, even their own, whether it's based on religion, race, or culture, anyone could be infiltrating. And the thing about it is they don't really plan for stuff like that. I mean, we even think about the Black Panthers. It didn't take white people first to start bringing us down. It took our own people within a Black Panther movement to bring us down, who questioned what does racial equality mean, and they also went towards a bad way of questioning it. at the end of the day, they didn't really have as much proper judgment with it. They were the infiltrators. Black people were bad. Black people were the infiltrators for the Black Panther movement. That's the
I
reason
call
that
that
the
like
shit fell
buck
apart.
breaking. That's what I call that. I call that buck breaking.
Same thing for
I
infiltrators
want
with
to,
BLM and shit.
real quick, I want to say that um, I feel like we're getting off the subject, and just hear me out,
We
because
still talking about
this is not
racism.
this is, okay, let me finish. This is not a space for devil's advocate. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you, because you can't do that.
I'm
It
not
it is
being a
not
devil's advocate. I'm
it
just telling the truth.
DJ. So that's number two. I'm going to go ahead and finish. I really would appreciate it if you just went ahead and muted yourself so I can go ahead and say what I'm saying. So it feels as though we are getting off of the topic. And I understand why you feel like you're on topic, but the difference here is everybody else on the panel got a chance to know the subject beforehand. So I'm not saying that, you mean to be coming off as devil's advocate, but from the perspective that we're watching the video from, and all the other points that we've made up until here, and even then when China agrees with you, you're like, but it goes on both sides, but it goes on both sides. And that's why we are talking about systematic. We were just talking about regional racism. We were just talking about neighborhood racism. We were just talking about in the schools. We were just talking. So that is the subject of what we are talking about. And systemically, we are not in a position to do that, which is why you can't actually say any examples in which we had the power to infiltrate a white community. And so, in that, hold on, and in that nature, that is what we are talking about. If you don't identify with the consistent mental, physical, and systemic abuse that we are all on this panel talking about, that every scholar on in the video is talking about, then I don't think that this may be the space for you. And it's not because you're not like minded. What I will say is it feels like you're not open to learning, because you're just like, well, I'm just like, immediately when I started talking to you, you cut me off. And that is just to say that I am no tolerance. I am here to have level-headed conversations with people that are going to help further the conversation. And this is not a space for devil's advocate, because there are so many other points that I want to get to. And it feels like, because you are playing that part, or it feels like to me that you're playing that part, that we can't get there. So what
I'm
I'm
not.
going to say, hold on, what I'm going to say definitively before I go ahead and let you talk, is that what I'm gonna do is give you like your last comments. You're open to say whatever you want. So I know that I was like, you're off topic. And your last comments, you can go ahead and say whatever you want. Any last thoughts, anything that you feel like you want to teach us. And then I'm gonna go ahead and drop you down. And maybe what I'll do is I'll keep alternating people, but what I am gonna do is prioritize the main panel, and maybe just drop in and out people, because I see that when we're not all on the same page, at least as far as the subject, we stray from the point, and I don't like that.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so for my last comment, since you were reasonable and respectable to me, I'm gonna do the same to you. So last comment, I wasn't the devil's advocate. I'm just telling the truth, and I'm saying what the problem is, and I hopefully wanted to say how we could fix it, not just for black people, but just all people. And the thing about it is that I am looking for a progression for all, but you want progression for yourself. You want it to be one-sided, one way. You want it to be your way, but why can't it just be all people's way to succeed and to have opportunity and to fix the system for everybody? Bye.
Welcome back.
Bye.
Before you
Have a
drop
great
down.
day.
Oh, he dropped down. I was going to ask, because Joyce asked yesterday. Well, since you guys feel like that, I would like some of the listeners to let us know what you would do if you were president. She asked a great question. So you're talking about equality and equity for all. I want to know how you see us going about that. Just because we don't agree right here doesn't mean that you might not have some gems. And I'm about furthering everybody, but I think that we should start with our community first. And it's just ironically enough, our community happens to be, to me, the most oppressed. So please
I
let me
agree.
know how you think that we could further that. And I am definitely open to listening. So I'm going to go ahead and play the messages that we have, and then we can elaborate if anybody has any points.
Okay, Ella. Okay, question for you: are we still being oppressed in the United States today? And if so, why we just don't leave the United States? Why do we have to deal with our oppressors? If we know we're getting oppressed in the United States, why do we stay here? Let me know. Holla.
I actually think that's a great question. And I've had like a lot of thoughts on this specifically. So I do want to comment on that, and I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. But Storm Ready, I do appreciate that question.
Well,
Yes,
I
the topic
oh
are
sorry.
oppressive people being honest with themselves. It is very hard to be honest with yourself when you're an oppressor. Everybody wants to get in heaven, right? Nobody wants to go to hell. So nobody wants to admit that they could be enacting behaviors that were trained from their culture that are oppressive to other people. So, you know, it's hard to look at our own instincts and see how it's affecting others. We think it's normal. We normalize it because we grew up in environments that normalize it, and that's how you just lived. And so when you get in other environments, you act this way that you think is normal. You talk to people a certain way that you think is normal, and you have no idea how it's affecting them. And so those people are feeling oppressed. Those people are feeling a lack of empathy from your side, and you know, you're just like, yeah, that's how I grew up. That's how it's supposed to be. What are you talking about? This is normal, right?
Are all white people racist? Do we got any percentages? Or do y'all know any white racist people? Personally? Just asking. I don't know none. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't know any, and they probably are out there. But I don't know none. So if you don't know any, can you actually say is racist? It's just like a person who get robbed. I never been robbed, so I couldn't tell you the experience. So do y'all look at all white people as racist? Let me know.
Progression for the system for people starts by starting at the mind first, along with easy effort. And when I say easy effort, I'm talking about simple shit that can help people get right in the mind to make sure that they're able to actually bring something that's beneficial overall. And to open up the mind, you really just I don't really know. You really just gotta learn shit from different perspectives and then question why a person thinks that way, how they think that way, and everything around it. And then you have to put all of these ideologies, good or bad, in a pot and just filter out what is worth gripping to help everybody and what ideology doesn't outright help anybody. And also what things can just help people overall the most. You can't be a savior, but you can make things safer. Ready? I'm gonna answer that question quickly. Are all white people racist? I say no. The thing about it is that there are racist people, people who are racist intentionally. There are people who are racist unintentionally because they're not educated. And
Storm Ready, I think you might be trolling with that second message that you sent. Can you not do that? This is a really serious conversation. I think you got triggered because you felt like Christianity was attacked. Don't do this, please.
I also feel like from our previous conversation, you already established that, you disagree. So I would assume that if you were here, you were here to hear the experiences of people that have experienced racism and do know what it does to a community and what it's doing to people. So if you are here to just listen, you don't have that same experience, okay. Like, we're not going to keep beating that dead horse. But what we are going to do is talk about the subjects that we have in place. And this is us having a common agreement on there being racism. So we're not going to combat that throughout this conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
this
why
one.
don't we go to Africa? Pete, did you have a comment before we
Yeah,
change subject?
yeah. Thank you. No, this is in pertaining to the video, and somebody said it, so I actually wrote it down because I thought it was interesting. Look at racism. So they say Hema writes that racism is about power, not ignorance. It is infinitely adaptable. It comes in fitted suits as well as flowing sheets, in well-appointed faculty lounges as well as smoke-filled dive bars. So I don't know, just related to that kind of vibe in there on that kind of office corporate kind of feel and the way racism moves through the air. And it's not even discussed or seen, but it's just there.
It's one of those things. It's like thick in the air, huh? I understand.
Yeah.
Yes, very important. I think that maybe prejudice and implicit bias, can be attributed through the ignorance. But I think the things that we're talking about, you need power in order to do that. And one thing that I said yesterday is I think that this psychological and physical, abuse and terrorizing of certain communities, especially the Black community, has gone on for a while. And I think to Joyce's point from a while ago is it is this inferiority complex wrapped up in superiority, trying to find some kind of identity outside of, the conquering or the violence, because, just as much as people like to bring up, oh well, Black people don't have a culture, Black people don't have a culture. I think that more often than not, I think that it is the people doing the oppression that feel like that, because in the same light that you are pressing and downing everything somebody does, you're also mimicking it to the fullest extent and trying to take it. I think that even if we bring it down to a micro level, has always been a sign of jealousy. And I think that trying to unwrap the layers of that psychology, I guess, amongst ourselves does contribute to us taking back some of our power. And, like we were talking about, there are people that have that learned oppression, that what was that term that you used, Joyce? Opposed to inherited oppression or inherited inferiority complex. And I think that definitely contributes a lot to that, and the power in place contributes greatly to that, because then you have this system where even just outside of where you can live, what you can buy, what you can own, then you have little stuff where, like I always bring up, you have to go to certain areas just to get your complexion of makeup, just to be in the right part of town where they expect you to be. It's so subtle to so large that I understand why there's a generation, not a generation, but a population of people in these oppressed groups that are having a hard time seeing it, because they don't understand the math and being an outlier, and that doesn't make your experience the total experience. And I think that just comes down to us centering ourselves around, like Storm Ready. We have 4 people on here. 3 of us, I believe, all identify as Black, and then one of us is Puerto Rican, and we're all saying that there's structural racism and psychological racism and warfare. And you, just one out of 5, have decided that your 20% is the full spectrum of what everybody experiences. And I think that that is very detrimental because that is part of that power that Pitsky is talking about.
Let me talk a little bit more on that. So one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my travels, and I'm gonna keep it to where I need to be at, is me growing up and being around hood type of FU kind of bully off the top. I don't care what nobody thinks. I don't give a fuck mentality. Sorry to curse. And that one person who comes in where everybody feel you're going to get beat up or shot or whatever the flow is, or you feel sorry, comes in and just dominates the room. And I've been through that over and over. And I thank you for saying, well, that's just one person who thinks they're the mass, but you're not even on the same vibration, talking about the same thing. But because you sound tough, and you probably are tough, and everything else that goes with that, you are not, going to dominate the present discussion. And that lesson you taught me yesterday will resonate because I've already used that. Just because if somebody comes in tough with the energy, and there's other people, whether intellectual not or not, having a discussion, you don't have to be intimidated because somebody's going to beat you up or threaten you or follow you or find your family or meet you outside. That's whack. Let people speak. And you taught me that yesterday. And I want to say thank you. You know what I mean? Thank you. That's a powerful lesson.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm constantly learning things on this app, and that is one of the things that I did learn is just feeling like you deserve to be here. And I think that comes with that inherited, oppression is we tend to shrivel up in a lot of different places. And if you add more oppressions on top of that, the smaller you allow yourself to get. And we help them create, by getting in it, the fish tank that they try to, make for us. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing now, like you said, with Black women specifically and in the Black community, is people just deciding that they're just going to take their power back and moving through effortlessly the oppressions. And a lot of people will be like, well, why are you mad? Why are you mad? I feel like a lot of these conversations are about how we can take people with us. So even though we are advocates for, you know, not centering the oppressors, we are still creating spaces in which we can help, people who may have a different idea maybe become more informed and see the bigger picture. And I think that a lot of the times, sometimes, you want to be the 20% that means everything, and you don't realize how you're contributing to the exact problem you say doesn't exist. And I think something that I realized not too long ago, like literally not too long ago, was I am tired of explaining the problem to the problem. What you can do is you can listen, you can take notes from afar, but I am not going to explain the problem to you because you are the problem. What I'm going to do is move around you, move through that, and try to continue to speak to people that may be a problem, may contribute to the problem, but actually are looking for ways to not do that anymore. And I think that just comes from having empathy. And then also, I learned on our side not to get lost in empathy, because one thing that China mentioned not too long ago was there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I think that that is a powerful word, healing, and a powerful term for all of us, and especially, I think, for racist white people. But in that empathy, I can't get lost in it because that is me feeling like I can play God and I can change you. No, what I can do is try to contribute and change the structure, because you can't change somebody that's made their mind up. You know what I mean? So instead of doing that, I'm going to continue to move in spaces where it's fluid for me, instead of having to come up on these blockages and feel like I absolutely have to break them down. I think that's a part of another point that another educator said on this panel, whites talking to other whites, is not making it the oppressed people's job to educate you, not making it somebody else's job to put you in a position to where you have to understand. That is your job to do that work. So if you come in a space where they're talking about racism and you don't understand what they mean, it's your job to listen and not to be like, well, let me go and tell them real quick that they're wrong. We see a lot of that. I'm going to go ahead and get into the messages and then we'll get back to the point. I want to know why do you think we don't go to Africa? I'll entertain it because I do have like a couple thoughts on this, but yeah, I want you guys to think about that.
Oh, like, do you really hear that people say that black people don't have a culture? That I've never heard, not one fucking. Actually, I've heard on the contrary. My family's from Sicily. I'm 100%, full blooded. That white, European Americans don't have a culture. But I think Sicilian and Italian culture is pretty fucking rich. A very rich culture that's, well, let's say been copied, but yeah, no, I don't think that at all. But I think that if you want to count hip hop as, part of black culture, that had a big part of my life. I've never heard anybody say that. I'm wondering how much. I'd like to get a forensic accountant on how many times you've actually heard people say black people don't have a culture. Because I'm going to go ahead and say you're embellishing maybe a little bit.
It's actually pretty funny. A couple of those conversations are recorded on here. So I think that I kind of just touched on that before, is somebody's ability to come in and be like, I don't believe you. Okay, well, just to kind of end this streak, because I'm starting to get a little irritated. I don't give a fuck what you believe. You can pull out as many files as you need to pull out. Like, that is not what we are debating. And the fact that that is what you want to debate. Well, I don't feel like, I heard a lot of people said that. I don't feel like I ever asked you if you ever heard a bunch of people say that. I don't understand why they would tell you that if you're not black. I don't understand why they would have conversations with you like that if you're not in spaces where that would come up. So, and again, we see us centralizing ourselves around a situation that literally still has nothing to do to us. You came into a black space and said something that a black person, well, I haven't had that experience, so you're lying. What? And the fact that we've gotten so comfortable doing that, like, what does that even mean? What does that do for you? If you find out that I've never heard that and you call my bluff, and then what? And then what? So I just feel like we keep finding new and inventive ways to stray from the subject, and I find that to be the biggest testimony of what we're all saying, opposed to what you think it is.
I have one more question. If oppression and racism has to do with power, and the milk is always in power, that means we can never get rid of racism or oppression. So if that's the case, all that we talking today is it just empty words? Because according to y'all, power has to become for the racism. I think I saw it. Somebody made a movie called Cracker. I saw it on BT, and it was the reverse, where the white man was the slave and the black man was the oppressor. I sent y'all that clip, but it's funny. But if you can't get rid of their power, then how is it possible that you can ever get rid of oppression and racism? Let me know.
No, I don't want to, but I would never want to debate anything with you, probably. But I was just listening, and I was asking a question about a certain thing you said. That's not the topic I want to debate. It's not my intentions whatsoever. Have fun, lecturing everybody, and have a good show.
You literally said, I would like to pull a forensic file on how many times you've actually heard that. So I think that a lot of times people will actively go out of their way to be rude, condescending, sarcastic, and then when you call them out on it, like very bluntly, and they feel
Yeah,
foolish, then they're like, well, that's not what I was going to do. Just own up to
yeah.
it. That
Lecture
is
was a
what you were
rough
trying to do.
word. Sorry to interject. Lecture was a rough word for me. I'm just saying, lecture is a rough word. I don't find this a lecture at all. I find this a discussion. And everything that's coming our way is just so inappropriate that it also like capitulates the whole what we have here. And I like to be here because I like to stand in the face of fire because I'm not getting burned. We not getting burned. We just chilling. And this is the environment we in. This proves that what we saying is brilliant. It's right on point. Look how they
Right.
reacted. Look how they
Yeah.
reacting. Where else you want to be? Out there where they making stories up? We in the pit of whatever, hell or whatever. We here. Look at this around us. Listen to what we talking about. They're not contesting it. They're not responding in the messages to anything that's being said. This is why I'm home, and this is why I say I love y'all, because this is the truth right here. Deviate or give me some energy to move a different direction. But look at the energy you gain as queens, as black women, as women. No, them days is over. That's so 1980, whatever. I'm 51. That's so 1985. I've seen this decades ago. Y'all deserve. Y'all have it. It's not deserved. You know what's up. Just be very disciplined and continue and watch your back because snakes come out anywhere and they get close to you and y'all got needs
Yes.
and wants, but y'all on fire right now. Y'all on cool mode or whatever. All love. Keep
Right.
doing it. Don't stop. I'm here to
Definitely,
Definitely.
support.
Ski.
As
Thank
macho
you.
testosterone, I'm
Thank
here to
you.
support it and you hear my voice. And I ain't coming
Right.
at you, homie, at all. I'm just saying, but I feel the word lecture is too strong, too unnecessary, too. We ain't trying to do that. Let's let her breathe. You know what I
It's
mean?
fine, P. It's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
it's
this
too
is
tough.
supposed to be educational.
Sure.
So, I
So
mean, it's
yeah,
everybody
nigga.
here is supposed to be learning more about this, and that was supposed to be the first step, right? We're supposed to be sitting up here
Sure.
talking and learning about this, and
Yeah.
Sure.
I
having a
want to point out
dialect
that
about it.
I want to point out Joyce had something to say that I appreciate the support, Pete. I appreciate the mediation, China. I appreciate you for that, and I want to get back on track. But yes, I definitely think that we're all in agreement that we're not going to stray from the point, and I do think that we should be teaching. But some people need to be in a place where they have to be told about themselves to do that. I agree with both sides. Okay, so Joyce, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you're having a good conversation when there's distractions, right? And I think that
It's crazy.
when we're
So
on the right path to discovery, transcendence, when we're really moving the needle, there's going to be a lot of distractions that come and try to um, knock us off of our path, even from people who look just like us. It doesn't escape me that as a black woman, I'm met with some of my own men that will come on the panel and completely disrupt the panel, overtalk, turn it into something that they want it to be, or be in the comments, trying to stray away from the topic. But I mean, I just think that just kind of lets me know that, or lets us know that we just need to stay on topic and continue to look forward, even in the midst of chaos and confusion, right? I get that we're all on different points of the spectrum and different points of the path, but I will not be led astray. I'm just not going to allow that to happen. I think it's great that Elle is not allowing that to happen either. And I appreciate
Right.
the support from Queen and Pete Ski.
Kudos to
you're
L.
welcome.
Real
You're
shit. We
welcome.
all got ADD, but we can do this. Come on, y'all.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, speaking of that, I'm gonna get back to the messages and then we'll get back on topic.
Minds can change. If Fred Hampton, even though he was killed, if Fred Hampton can get racist white people, racist black people, racist Hispanic people, along with gangs on different racial divides, along with people with different religious views or no religious views, to unite is possible. And if you say it's not possible and that I'm saying some kumbaya type shit, will I say this?
Yes, I will say this. Violence is needed for a proper revolution, but what is a proper revolution? It's not that you have one group on your side, or two groups, or 1,000 groups, or 1 billion groups. It's about the fact that you have groups in large numbers, as large as possible, being realistic, all allied together to not only hold firearms, but to hold mind and to hold action. Many things. They have to have the mind, because when you have the mind, you have the motivation. And when you have the motivation, you can bring it in with small tweaks here and there, whether it's on the system, whether it's on your community, whether it's on you, whether it's on other people.
Just a short little comment. I want to say that I feel as a community, we need to work on ourselves first and get ourselves together, get the structure in place to where we have the power and are in a position mentally, physically, and structurally to be able to combine or at least be on the same level with other races of people, because colorism does exist. These isms are put in place to put us in a spectrum. So we are speaking of the Black community as far as the spectrum being at the bottom. So we are trying to get on level with these people structurally so that we can connect with them. And a point that we made earlier was that yes, we need to all come together, but we're trying to work on ourselves first. And even then, we're always being inclusive. We are not saying don't be inclusive. We're saying don't be inclusive to your demise. You say that in person to person, don't love somebody too much. So why wouldn't we tell it to ourselves as a community? We are trying to build that self-love, because only somebody that maybe was insecure or didn't love themselves would give somebody advice like, love yourself, girl, and not be in a position to be able to do that. So if you take it from a micro to a macro, it is very understandable why we are trying to work on the self-love before giving advice to our best friend, or whatever spectrum you want to put it on, to be able to understand why we are trying to work on ourselves. And like I said, that William Lynch quote, take the mind and keep the body. I think working on community is part of taking our minds back, because colorism being in place means some of these other communities have these structural or racist thoughts. And so if we don't come as a community strong minded, we might end up back on the bottom just like we were before. It's about having a solid community, a strong community, to be able to take on these challenges, incorporate the challenges of other people while still being strong in self. And I think that people are trying to stress uh, diversity in the Black Lives Matter movement, which is weird. I don't know if anybody catches that when they hear it, but I think that that is further oppressing the people to be like, well, I'm going to worry about these issues first and then I'll get to you. And by the way, you should help me worry about these issues first and then I'll get to you.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. You know, ever think like when somebody says something, not, well, you in that instance, but other people when they're, in general conversation with anybody, like there's so many times I've seen this. And you get like somebody that is a forensic accountant and they count how many actual times. It's probably exaggerated, but everybody does that. But yeah, no, dude, if I ever heard somebody say Black people don't have a culture, I would vehemently and fucking very vocally disagree. You know what I mean? I wouldn't, like, if I was involved in the discussion, I would disagree very, very fucking vehemently. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't want to debate it. Forensic accountant thing, I always say that, When a friend of mine will say, like, yeah, dude, I bowled 300 games in bowling. And I can get a forensic accountant on that and find out that it's not true.
This is going to be the last thing I say, and then I'm leaving. Debating all doesn't encourage all as much as understanding all to do all.
This is not a debate.
What?
Hey, listen, that wasn't my intentions at all. I'm sorry if I strayed you guys off the topic. My fault. I apologize for that. Peasky, I know Peasky. I've listened to him a bunch of times, and that's I'm not mad at you for thinking that either. So forgive me. I will sit back and listen. You guys have a good day. Much love and happy 4th.
I'm sorry.
You know
I'm
what,
very
Ella?
sorry.
You know what, Ella Green? That's something that we can agree on. Everybody need to get themselves together before we could talk about any type of unity or anything. We have to get ourselves together as individuals, as black men, black women, black kids, black family, black community. So that's the one thing we agree about. Hey, that's peace to you right there for that. Peace. What's crazy is the Black Lives community. I mean, the Black Lives Matter. The whole march. You see mostly white people. So I don't know, y'all. It's a sad situation because you went to some of the. I looked at some of the marches. It was a lot of white people out there. So do y'all agree with that? You think it should have been all black people with them? I mean, if we're trying to get ourselves together, we need to be unified. But to me, I think the problem is when it come up to leadership, no leadership. So if you just leave it to different families, we can never be unified. So leadership is a big issue. So, you know. But yeah, I agree with you, Ella. As individuals, we need to get ourselves together and raise the bar, to raise the standards to ourselves first before we can even think about unity. Holla.
This is unrelated, and then I'll give somebody else the floor. I just want everybody that's listening. My name is Elle. It is Elle, not Ella. Oh, it's just Elle. Okay, I just want to clarify if I'm ever in a talk with any of the listeners or anything, just so y'all know. Okay.
I also wanted to talk real quick about what Storm Ready said about agreeing with you. We all need to work on ourselves. Every time I get up here, I want to make sure that I say at least once mental health, you guys. You need a mental check. You need to chill. You need to take a minute and self reflect. We need to start healing. Basically, what that means. Okay. Once we heal within ourselves and help ourselves, then we'll be put in a position where we can help others, and then other people will be, then we will be able to hit the other issues that are going on, because those are also very relevant. But this is getting out of hand, y'all. All the killings and all the it's too much. It's triggering. It's really really bad. It's the PTSD is real, y'all. I'm just saying.
Joyce, did you have a comment on any of the messages?
Um, um, yes, I do. Just collecting my thoughts really quickly, but yeah, what I'm noticing from the men, from the black men in particular, is this need for white validation. I noticed that one of the black males told Queen not to say the word white. So there was tone policing going on there. And I just feel like it's this need for, can't we all just get along? They're not all bad.
Right, Joyce?
No, we
Notice how I
can't
said,
say
"Oh
all
no," but
bad.
he was white.
Right,
No,
right.
he was white.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care.
And
He was white.
exactly. She said the truth. And I asked myself, where does that come from? Where does that need for validation and just wanting everything to be okay, where does that come from? And it comes from a deep rooted sense of inadequacy, right? And what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talked about in her book, The ISIS Papers, is she talked about how if you go into a jail, right, and you have all the prisoners in the jail and the warden is wearing them out, after some time, the prisoners hope and kind of pray, I guess you can say, that the warden will be nice to them. So I kind of liken that to our men and how they just want um milk,
Like
masculine and
Stockholm
feminine
syndrome.
milk. Yes, they just They just want them to be nice. Just be nice to me. I'm not a big scary black man. Just be. I'm really nice. I'm really nice. And 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 as a black woman, I really don't like that because it it's just not right. Like it's weak, right? I see where it's coming from, but that is not the way. That is not the way. Um, I just think it's really not of God. How about that, Storm Ready? It's not of God.
Yeah, I took, one of the things I took from, and I thank you for sharing. One of the things I took from this video was scientific support, and I did look at it. Tried to look for it, couldn't on racist ideologies. Like it's a scientific community on the behaviors of what we're seeing now, the support there. Where is that information provided to start maybe understanding more and bring that about? Because we really have to understand the funny things these trolls do continually, because they're just like, you know, maybe possible. I mean, they lose their minds. So scientific support. Is anybody here aware of scientific research on racism, racist ideologies?
Yeah, well, I read the book, the ISIS papers, that really
Sure.
laid it out. And have you
Mm.
heard of the science experiment that they did on rats? I believe it was. They
No, I'm not
created
familiar.
a
Not familiar.
okay, I'll tell you all about it, and I'll never forget the
Thank you.
story. And after I tell you all the story, you all will probably never forget it either, right?
Am I
So
gonna
think about
cry?
the story.
I don't want to cry.
No, I don't think you're
I'm
gonna
not
cry. I
gonna
think
cry.
you'll just remember. I think you'll just
Yeah.
remember it, and you'll say, "Ooh." So,
Mm.
so they did an experiment really quick. They did an experiment on a rat, right? And they wanted to create an aversion to strawberries with this rat. So
Mm.
they put a strawberry out, and when the rat went to touch the strawberry to eat it, they like made this really loud bang sound, and it scared the rat, and the rat was like didn't want the strawberry. Okay, so they did that a few times. Okay, now the rat does not like strawberries. So the rat gets pregnant because she is female. She has a baby, and they tested the baby mice, and the baby would not go near the strawberry. They tested the grandbaby. The grandbaby would not go near the strawberry. So even though they didn't even experience that pain, the fear that the initial rat had, they knew not to go near the strawberry. So I said all that to say that when you look at the transatlantic slave trade, or just everything that black people go through, or people of color, or marginalized people, what trauma was passed down? Because our people never got therapy, never got any restitution or anything like that. And we all have different pathology passed down to us genetically. It literally in our bone marrow. So I just think we have to be aware of that and wrap our arms around that if we truly want to heal.
I feel like there's a lack of acceptance for that too. And I think a lot of it comes from a lack of knowledge of it because everything's been masked so well. Like even these things, like, I think about it in relation to what you said, which is interesting because I feel like I will definitely remember that. That's interesting. It feels like it's exactly what we're going through because sometimes I'm very like inquisitive, I guess, about myself. So I would think a lot as a kid. And there would just be things that like I would do, just ways that I would react to certain things. And I would always ask myself, where is that coming from? But I didn't have the knowledge of where that was rooted. And later these thoughts, these ideals, these fears, like it was just very prominent. And then you mix that with the things that you're already seeing on TV and experiencing in life. And it was very, it's like being born traumatized and not knowing where that's coming from. And a lot of the times I see that in our community. And I see a strong desire for some people to be so disconnected with that. It's like, you know how like you do drugs to get away from the pain. And it's like this is a psychological numbing of that feeling of fear and inferiority. And a lot of that comes from these people that feel like that are the ones that don't know our history before slavery. They are the ones that are ill equipped with the tools to understand the systems that are put in place. And so they go around preaching the self hate and getting to the young minds already tapping into that, like you said, inherited oppression that is already existed. And I hear Kimberly Crenshaw, the one that did the TED Talk that we talked about the other day, she was talking about that a lot. Like, you know, how some black mothers will downplay, you know, their kids in front of white people, you know, just because you don't want the white person thinking that, you know, they think their kid is better than them and doing something to hinder them, you know, like just these subtle and subliminal ways that these mind frames just pass down whether you actually experienced it or not, which is funny because they will always say, well, you didn't go through it. Well, you didn't go through it. Well, you didn't go through it. But just like you're sitting here in my face feeling entitled to tell me what I did and did not go through, that was passed down to you. And so even if I hadn't experienced it, this fear and understanding of what the world looks like from my eyes is always going to be present. So I think that that is a very telling experiment to just kind of show how these things that they kind of laugh at us about, or you know, these stereotypes that they have, like, oh, black people are afraid of water, and black people are afraid of dogs, and black people are afraid of the woods. I question, you know, how much of that is actually rooted in the ways that they used to torture us,
Can I
and
go
it's
ahead
still
and
fear
add
in
to
us.
that, Elle, when you get a sec? When you, because you said that that all these things that black people do, they scientifically they call it intergenerational trauma. So it is a very scientific thing that they went and did research and found out that once a trauma has happened to you, that trauma is so shocking that it is inputted in your DNA and passed down to your children and then to their children and so on. So it's that when you said that black women have issues with speaking down about their daughters, you have to be able to do the research and dive deep into that. The reason why they do that is because back then they had to, or they wouldn't see their daughter ever again. Because if you spoke up about your daughter while the white men were there, then they were going to snatch your daughter up and go, oh well, she's a good cook, so we need her for this. We can sell her and get good money off of this woman right here. Then you'll never be able to see your kid again. That was taught to us in order to save our kids. Like now that we do it today, it's hurtful. Like, oh my god, like I just was walking by and my mom was talking so much shit on me. What the fuck? No, it's because they had to do that to make sure you lived. It's not like it's that deep down to us laughing. You know how people laugh and they're like ha 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 ha, and they cover their mouth or they run away, or black people are always so dramatic when they laugh. They were not allowed to laugh back then. If a white person saw them laugh, they would get really 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 bad punishments. So they would have to hide their smiles. They would have to put their head in barrels. They would have to do whatever they had to do to make sure that the master didn't see them smile. That's how deep it runs. That stuff is in our DNA. It's not going to change, and that's what I mean by, like, we need to heal, and it's so much deeper than people notice.
Wow, that was really profound, Queen. Thank you for sharing that with us. I love it. Can I also add really quick too? When we are fetuses and we're in our mother's womb, I think it's a good question, if we feel comfortable, to ask our mothers what were they dealing with while they were pregnant with us. Some of us may have been marinating in shame, guilt, negativity. It could have been positive, could have been a difficult situation, and I think that that definitely impacts our lives.
Joyce, I want to hear more about that. What
Okay,
can
yeah.
you
Well, let
elaborate on
me
that?
absolutely. Let me illustrate this. So, if you all are not familiar with, oh my God, I'm so glad you put Dr. Joy DeGruy up. Yes, I love that book, Post Traumatic
Yeah,
Slave
sorry,
Disorder.
that was the one I was talking about instead of Kimberly Crenshaw. So I wanted to say that, but that's why I was silent. I apologize for that brief moment of silence. But yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
Yeah, yeah. So, I was gonna bring up Iyanla Van Zant. If you all are familiar with her, she has a lot of great books. She had a show called Iyanla Fix My Life, all of that. But um, she talked about how what were our mothers going through when they were pregnant with us? What were we marinating in? And for her, to make a long story short, her mother was the side chick. Her father was married, and he had cheated on his wife, and it was that kind of a situation. So she marinated in guilt, in shame, and in secrecy because the mother couldn't really tell anyone who she was pregnant by, right? And when she was born, the mother really didn't live too much longer after that. I think her mom died when she was like maybe two or so. So she was living with the father, and the grandmother, and she was abused as a child, unfortunately. But she noticed when she grew up, she would always attract women who were who would betray her, basically. She would attract women who would lie and betray her. And when she did her shadow work, she realized that's who she came from. And that's what she was kind of pushing and projecting out too, because we tend to attract what we are. So sometimes we can look no further than our own parents to get to the bottom of why we act the way we act.
I definitely agree. I feel like we see it in so many different levels too, which is why it's so important to do that shadow work. And there's levels to it, and it's so intimate, and it's difficult. And I feel like my experience is I'm going through it every day, trying to unravel some of these things because I think sometimes too, as an adult, when your parents are still in your life, depending on how much they're still in your lives, you can either see that head on and shy from it, or just be completely oblivious to it, or try to change it. But even in that, it does require work, and our parents mold us as far as nature and nurture and all these different elements. And then you even go to the psychology of it and the nature of however they chose to live their life and absorb that into their biology. Uh, Even down to some of the generational things that we have going on, like the high blood pressure and you know what I mean, on top of all those things. So there's so many elements of it where it feels, sometimes I feel like I get a little overwhelmed trying to break down all of it and get to the root of all of it or understand all of it. But this video that I got tagged above, like you mentioned, it does put a good amount of it into perspective, or all of it into perspective. And it's really just up to you to be able to decipher and really sit with it. And I feel like anything worth listening to or reading, like you'll have to sit with and maybe come back to and maybe read again through a different eye, and have to sit with. And this is definitely one of those videos because I was learning a lot about myself through this study. And I think that's always interesting when you feel like you're doing that, to realize that part of your biology is a part of this systematic infrastructure. And that's why it's so important. Does anybody else have any extra comments on that?
Yeah, can I
No.
give another book suggestion
Yeah.
really quick? Richard Williams has a book called Black and White: The Way I See It. He's the father of Venus and Serena Williams. That is a wonderful read.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm.
I got that.
Okay, so one of the things I want to bring on topic, 2 points I'll make, and anybody in the listeners and the panel can respond to it. A past point before I changed the link that I wanted to make was in relation to the Black community specifically, and the betterment of us knowing that we struggle within our community with misogynoir and trying to have plantation patriarchy, which is basically just seeing that manhood displayed through whiteness looks like power, dominance, so on and so forth. And if I'm a man, then that's what I need in order to feel even more like a man, or that's what I need to validate my manhood. And so, a question that I was going to ask is, do you think that it would take uh, white men and white people changing first in order for black men to even attempt to change, or men of color that struggle with these viewpoints, not all of them, but the ones that struggle with this and this self-hate? Do you think that it would take having to literally just follow somebody white doing it in order for them to even attempt to do it, if
Ooh,
obtaining white power is their goal?
that's a really
I
good
feel.
question,
Oh,
Elle. I'm gonna let you
wow.
answer, Queen.
Ooh, I feel like in order for it to change them, it would have to affect them directly. I feel like they would have to see it with their own eyes happen to them. And I know it sounds brutal. It sounds brutal because it is. Because it's that deep. At that point when you're that far in, you need something to really, really shake your ass out of it. And if it were to affect his kids, or if it were to affect his family, and it affect him directly, I feel like then he would be like, oh gosh, maybe I was on the wrong side. Maybe he would have to rethink some things, and maybe then he'll be able to like open his eyes and sit back and listen, and do research. Like, honest to God, that's what I think.
Um, if I were to answer the question, I would say yes and no. I would say I would see black men changing for two reasons. One, if white men changed, then yeah, they would. Because I think that there is a need for white validation, and I think that a lot of them, both consciously and subconsciously, want to be white men. So if white men acted right, then they would follow suit because they want to be them. It's kind of like the father wanting to be the son. Ooh, right? But the other side of that is because I don't really see masculine milk changing, because it would be to their own detriment, and they're not going to do that if they created a system so that they can be here because they know that they're genetic recessive. But anyway, I also see them changing alongside us, meaning we as black women, as we climb up the corporate ladder, as we branch off and make our own businesses and those businesses become successful, they're going to latch on to us and just kind of ride our coattails and change that way.
Which way do you think will happen first?
Black women.
Is that a closeness thing, or do you think it's a choice?
I think it's a closeness thing. I think that it's kind of hard to shake them because they find us no matter where we are. They're men. So they're going to find us. We can try to separate from them, but no, they're going to be right there. And a lot of us still love them very much. A lot of us love them more than we love ourselves. So as we're elevating, of course, we're going to share that with them. So I think they'll end up changing that way.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for alongside Black women, but sometimes on my less hopeful days, I feel like it would have to become a trend to not be an asshole for other people, the real assholes, to maybe not want to, but I'm not always confident. China, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add that I feel like at this point I feel like multiple different types of people are backing black women into a corner. And I feel like it's almost making us like even when you we want to be ignorant and we want to be like minding our own business, there's always something that brings us back and is like, wow, this is still like very, very real and this is affecting our future. And it brings us back and we realize that we don't want that for our grandchildren, and we realize we don't want that for our kids. We don't want that for us. So I feel like at this point, I think that black women are going to be able to do it because we can do anything that we put our minds to. But when the pressure is on us, woof, we like to show out. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like we get shit done.
We sure do. There's nothing else to do but win. We definitely do that. And I wanted to also add, Elle, it'd be interesting to hear your experiences too, you ladies' experiences with black men off the app. I don't know what it is, but black men off the app, they are like silly putty. They're very, in a good way, you all, in a good way. They are very open, very receptive. They listen, all of that, extremely respectful, not so much on the app. And I don't know if it's because it's a certain element that's on the app versus off of the app. It's kind of
I have
like
not had that
black
same
men off.
experience. I have
Oh,
on the disrespectful men and people in person too.
oh.
I think I'm just like a magnet to these kinds or something. I'm not sure what this is.
What about you, Elle?
I personally would say that it's about the same percentage on this app. Like actually are the men that get it or are trying to get it. If I had to put a percentage on it out of 10 men, I would say about 4 or 5 of them are actually trying to get it or want to get it. But I would say the other 5, them getting it, like I would say maybe 2, 3 of those people, they don't want to get it. They don't care. The last 2 people, I feel like they change dependent on how it will benefit them in that moment. So, a couple of dudes that I was dating, like maybe like, oh yeah, I'm all for it because they're benefiting from saying that. And then as soon as either the relationship ends or they're in a position where they can't be watched, they don't always think of those same ideas that, they say that they agree on. So I think that there is a matching kind of structure of men that I see be willing, not willing, and just trying to fit in somewhere in between there. I wouldn't say it's an outstanding amount. I can't say that it's never, but I will say that it is seldom. Um, Pete, I want you to answer that question, but I also had a question for you as a Latin man to the question that I asked before we move on to post-traumatic slave disorder, is do you feel like in the Latin community that there is this, clinging to whiteness? And if so, do you think that white men would have to stop being so misogynistic or oppressive towards their women in order for Latin men to do that?
Um, well, it's like assimilation, right? I mean, Latinos assimilate to either more of the hip hop culture or the, white preppy culture. So yeah, all about follow through. I was having a discussion prior to this podcast about being invisible in America, and that definitely fits Latino. I heard it recently. Latinos live in a bubble when it comes to social issues and discussions. Just being out, follow the same way as you see African American women speaking out loud. So it's definitely follow through all the way. It's like I'll show you how it works, and thank you, sir. But like I think you said or somebody said, we're not there yet. So it's definitely follow through without a shadow of a doubt.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play these messages and then get back to it.
I have a question for you for the white milk. How do you know what actions would it look like? What would it look like to see white people change, or what would they have to do? That's what I want to know. What would they have to do? Give money? Give food? What would they have to do? Change their lifestyle? Please explain to me. What does it look like for the white milk to change that we can see? Because if you don't, if you're not around white people to see it, I don't know how you're gonna see it anyway. But if you are around them, what do we need to see, or what actions do they need for us to see a change? Let me know.
I want to go ahead and quote Daniel Kaluuya on this and basically say that it's ridiculous to ask an oppressed person how to stop oppression because they know what they did. So I think that what we're trying to talk about within the community is recognizing it when we see it and how not to subscribe to it ourselves at all, and especially to the point where it becomes detrimental. I mean, does anybody else have a comment? Maybe I'm wrong.
Very good to me.
I can only speak from my background, but my parents are Cambodian, and my mom's side survived the genocide, and we left and came to America. And that's a very confusing history for me, very conflicted, because and I don't want to bring up, the whole Cambodian thing, but we still live with that. And something I learned a lot from media and from other people is expecting the abuser to change. And I really do consider a lot of parallels between the white power structure and how it does the bad stuff. Expecting them to change and hoping for them to change, waiting for Superman, is part of the problem. I would actually respond to Storm Ready with reasonable land laws on real estate so that, land serves a better purpose for people at large versus being essentially a Ponzi scheme to shuffle wealth around.
Wow. Thank you for being so honest and transparent, Vin. That was really powerful what he said.
Yeah, thanks, Vin.
I have a question for the panel. I agree with what Vin said in terms of the white power structure not changing, right? Um, so if it's not going to change, do we just work within the system, or do we still actively work to dismantle it? And in dismantling the system, do we think that there is a peaceful way to do that?
I don't think there's a peaceful way to do that at all. I think we're better off branching off and doing our own thing, honestly, because they're not going to let that go, and they've already proven time and time again they are more violent and more cutthroat about their moves. When yeah, we're able to fight back, but they're methodical, and I don't mean like methodical like I think there's another word I'm looking for here, but I totally blanked on it. I apologize. But
Diabolical.
yes, thank you. Thank you. That's the word. You always got my back,
I,
L.
I
What were you
feel it's
saying,
like a
V?
natural. Yeah, I feel it's like a natural progression. Just continue to do what we're doing, and we're not going to care about what they think. We just
Right.
continue to do what we're doing, and we're not going to ask. We're going to. It's not about remembering, but how's it feel when we're not dependent? It's just going to be kind of weird because we see you eye to eye. Incrementally. It's just a matter of time, but we need to continue this to move along. So let's all continue what we're doing.
Right.
I feel the
Exactly.
strength. I have backed,
Exactly.
and always say women such as yourselves are setting the stage and continue and don't fall. I mean, there's going to be something coming your way because you're going to start pushing a little bit too much just for being too great. So we can only expect that, but
Right,
that's
but
why I
like
say I'm here
also,
to
but
show
like Vince
support.
said, I agree with
Mhm.
Vince with that. You can't just sit there and wait either. We need to
Exactly.
do action because
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
part of the problem. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
I wanted to mention, like you kind of said, like if the playing ground, the playing field is even, then we get to really see who everybody is, and that's I think a fear of oppressors. Another thing that was Pete, and then China said before that they would never let us go, and they would honestly, they've showed that they can be very violent, are willing to be incredibly violent, and don't feel like it's a problem if they're fighting for their manifest destiny. And that brought me back to Storm Ready. Just the question that I wanted to address is why don't we go back to Africa? And I think as much as that is a racist thing that white people say, go back to Africa, they don't actually want that because they make too much money off of us. They steal our ideas and become billionaires. They steal our music and become billionaires. Like anything that a black person in America has, turned into any kind of profit, any idea, they have taken and monetized it and then gold plated it so that way nobody else can use it. So if we were to actually take that to another continent or other countries where it would actually benefit us and we would be able to keep it, we would start to see that America was never really a superpower to begin with. So I think that that is another, abuse tactic. Like if you think of it on a micro scale, you say, well, then leave then. Well, then leave then. It's because they know you're not going to. And they know the more that they push you out the door, say, well, the door is open, the more that you'll want to stay. But I feel like if anybody or if we started to truly try to make moves to do anything, they would have something to say about it and there would be incredible pushback. And how I feel like I know this to be true is because they worked so hard to keep us segregated and was like, we don't want y'all around, get away from here. So we created Black Wall Street and black churches and black communities. And they went out of their way to come to us and destroy it and then build a lake over it. So how I know that they need us around is because the fact that we were no longer bringing business and money to that side of town was a problem for them, and they needed to create a space where we may not live by them, but we do need to go over to them to spend our money.
Yeah, another question. Y'all think capitalism is not the right ism? Should it be socialism or communism? Which one of y'all feel like we better doing? Which ism is better for y'all that you think we can control as black people, Spanish people, or whatever, and cut them out? Please let me know that.
I thought we were talking about
What
post
ism is
traumatic
better for
slave
y'all?
syndrome.
Lord,
I thought we
He
oh
were
my
said, what
talking
God.
ism
about
is better for y'all?
PTSS.
Storm Ready, please don't. Please don't. Please don't.
Mhm.
But yeah, we are talking about that. But yes, I wanted to make that point from a while ago when he made that question, when he asked that question. And I was the only one that had a response to it. So I did want to say that is because I want just another way of taking our power back is realizing how strong, beautiful, and even though they try to put us on the lowest of the scale, we like hip hop
Yeah.
has been around for 40 years, but they have hip hop everywhere now. Like it doesn't take us long to make an
Yeah.
imprint, and they want all of those footprints to be here.
That's weird. That's Weird. I'm sorry. I was fighting. When you said nobody wanted to like respond to his question about maybe you guys should go back to Africa. Like, why haven't you gone home? Why haven't you left? Why are you still here? That's very ambiguous. And when people ask me that, you know what? I want to say people have asked me that like 5 times, and they were super white, of course. They're like, hey, you don't belong here, go back to your, they said it in so many different variations. And each time I legit had nothing to say to them because how dare you? You're not worth my energy with that question or that statement. There's no point because you're just assuming that I belong somewhere else when you don't know me, sir. You have no idea that there are other BIPOC people in this country. It's not just black. You don't know that I'm indigenous as well, and that there are actual black indigenous tribes here, and that is where I'm from. So I actually am from here. Surprise.
To
They
be
were here
fair, his
before you guys.
Yeah.
to be fair,
Right.
his question, it was about, it was like, well, if we see such a problem with racism here, why don't we just take ourselves back to Africa and build there? Why aren't we building there? Why don't we build something for ourselves? So yes, but I wanted to explain that because I feel like that is a black on black argument that I see a lot, as if they don't understand that we are needed.
So if I had said, this is the easiest place to make a living at, that would be indifferent, right? Like I wouldn't have to address anything. Like I wouldn't have to go down that cheesy kind of label line of today's what race are you? What is the statistic about you? So for me, I'd be like it's the easiest place to make money at, to make a career at, and I'll leave it
Right,
like
but
that because I don't have to
what do I
address
look
the
like
stuff
taking
other
my
people want
black
to angle
ass
me.
over
Yeah,
there with
the
their
hell.
into their territory and taking over their stuff, buying up their property and doing whatever the hell I want to do with it? No, that sounds
Yeah,
like them. Why would I do
yeah,
that? I'm not that.
exactly,
I am
exactly.
not you. Can you chill?
Yeah,
I
we
was gonna
also built
say,
this
Joyce.
nation. We built this. Storm Ready, I believe he's Black American. So why would you even suggest that? That's why I think that you're trolling Storm Ready. I want you to stop doing that.
Okay, on that note, I wanted to, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to ask Joyce if you could kind of get us into post traumatic slave syndrome and kind of what Joy was going into and kind of help brief us for this part of the conversation, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, yes. So Dr. Joy DeGruy has a doctorate in African American studies, psychology. I believe she also was a social worker, and she teaches courses on slavery, the impact of the transatlantic um, slave trade, and how it impacts Black Americans to this day. She also has a book called Post Traumatic Slave Disorder, and she literally goes back to slavery and talks about various aspects of slavery and how that ties into the behavior of African Americans today. It's very deep, it's very inspiring. You can listen to any of her many lectures on YouTube. There's a lot of them there. She also had a show on YouTube with her daughter, who's grown, and they just talked about many aspects of Black culture. But she is phenomenal. She's phenomenal. And I've watched a lot of her lectures.
What is one of the symptoms of post traumatic slave syndrome that she described in Black communities or in Black people that you yourself was like, oh, that hit home because I do that?
Yeah, she talked about J. Mariam Sims and how he experimented on enslaved Black women here in the United States with no anesthesia, right? And there's this saying that Black women can take pain. We don't experience pain. And all of the modern day advances of the OBGYN gynecology is attributed to the experiments he did on enslaved black women here in the United States. How that ties to me today is with medical apartheid, and that's another great book. I don't like going to the doctor. I do have a high tolerance for pain. I do. And I don't know, maybe it's because I am a black woman. I got to really be hurdled over to go to the doctor. And even when I did one time, so I went to my OBGYN, I don't think he meant anything by it, but he was giving me like a pap smear or something like that. He was like, "Oh no, it'll be fine. You're strong." And that's like a trigger for me as a black woman because I feel like both inside and outside the community, black women get told, "Oh no, you could take it. You're strong."
How much of that, because I noticed that too, how much of that do you feel like is the passing down or the inherited, trauma from slavery? And then how much of that is the oppressive culture of, women, or just the oppressive culture of, ourselves sometimes as a black community to reiterate these stereotypes around each other, kind of how we were talking about they don't even have to be around for the oppression to still be in place and work effortlessly. How much of it do you feel like contributes to these things, especially when you know that even if that wasn't a direct part of your past, that's something that we keep going by instilling it? Because I was going to say, I feel like part of it can also be psychological. This is just an assumption because you get it very early. You're hurt about something and it's like, stop faking, or like, you're not that hurt, or it doesn't hurt that bad, or it's not all that, you know what I mean? And you start to, and like, if you were like, no, this is like the most pain I've ever felt, then you start to undermine, psychologically your own pain, to be like, I guess it doesn't hurt that much. Does that make sense? I hope I didn't go in circles.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that it's passed down. Um, I think both consciously and subconsciously, I as a black woman know that my ancestors, their bodies unfortunately did not belong to them, and my body belongs to me. So perhaps that's my way of taking ownership of my body, even if I don't go to the doctor as much as I should. I try to do the natural remedies and things like that. And I think it's also based around the culture too. Of I think it's a cultural thing where we don't necessarily go to the doctors as much. I think sometimes we go in expecting secondhand treatment and we receive secondhand treatment.
Can I
Can I
add
ask a
that this
question?
is kind of deep for me. I might just have like a little story, but you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and let Pete say what he's has got to say first, and then I'll go ahead and I'll tell my story.
Yeah, thank you. So, Joyce, thank you for the information. So a lot of what I do just in life is mental wellness, and I learn about things through these podcasts. So, in your research that you've done on the medical information, was there a lot of literature in African American mental health and also medical health? Because I'm very interested in developing a library or something serious towards the research on African American health, mental and medical, or physical, I guess, if that's how it is. Did you see it as you were researching? There was an abundant amount of research, like material available, I
Um,
guess. Hmm.
I haven't really looked
Oh,
for that
okay.
in particular, but I do know Medical Apartheid. That's a wonderful book that just talks about the medical discrepancies that people of color, specifically Black people, face.
Hmm. That's okay. Okay.
Can I ask, our experiences not counting anymore, or would we rather read about it in a book? Is it more like,
Mm.
I don't know. Is it
like
valid?
scientific
Yeah.
measurement, empirical and
Yeah.
evidence.
Is
You
that
know,
like a
things
good
on.
source to get information from, or is word of mouth not a thing anymore?
For me, I'm more concerned that the people even care to do any research. That's my assessment. I want to know that people even care to pick up the tools and do the extra steps to provide the information for the public. They don't even care to
Right.
do
Maybe I
that. Can
should
you
write books
imagine?
about this shit. I feel
Yeah,
like
right.
if I
Because
write
ain't
more
no
books about
information
this
out
shit,
there.
maybe people will hear it
Yeah.
more.
Don't. I'll be behind
Hopefully.
you. I'll be behind you. It ain't nothing to say like her post. Like her
Right.
post.
Look, okay, look, that's so triggering to me. Real shit. Just because, as a black woman, I have seen utter nothing. I've seen so many doctors. Okay, not just me, my mother. Okay, so I've had to take my mother to the doctor like every day since I was like 7. Okay, these people, she has rotated through so many doctors. They've just blacklisted her completely. They don't even want to listen to her anymore. Like I've seen doctors treat my mother like shit. And I'm cursing and I apologize, but like that's literally what it was. I'm calling it what it is. Okay. It was a pile of shit. And I just got word the other day that now she's wheelchair bound. So it's like progressively getting worse to the point where it's just like when is she gonna be able to find a doctor that takes her pain seriously, because they are not even doing the proper research for black people to figure out how their bodies work. Um, the first thing they go to is weight, because the whole cholesterol thing. They tell us we need to lose weight. They tell us that we need to exercise. They tell us um, to take Motrin, and they tell us to go about our day. And that's the extent like of them caring. I don't know
That,
about you
that,
guys.
that,
Has anyone else had that issue?
Well, my mother's 75. She says she has language problems with the doctor, and she actually comes out of the appointment feeling bad, like inside. I'm like, don't they understand that, you don't speak the greatest English? I mean, she retired and did her thing, but that was never her thing. I mean, I understand she has a responsibility, but still, we talk about her health. We get the job done. And she said she felt real bad. So there's language issues within, the Hispanic Latin community. So I relate with you, but I still want to put it out there to anybody listening. Black mental and medical research is needed in volumes of books and studies and make beyond Harvard is needed. It's not a joke. So I would proactively like to engage in discussion and how we can start, because I am a community person. I know people in the community. I do my service and things like that to help people. That's PC thing. But if anybody's serious, a doctor, I want to come together and bring out like research information that could be valuable for people experiencing conditions. Let's talk, because I'm looking into that.
I'm more quick to go to a small doctor or a healer or literally anybody else, because that's just how much I hate the medical system, the insurance system, the
Oh,
pharmacy system. All
oh
of it's
yes.
all linked, you guys.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
are.
Oh, one point I. Oh,
Ooh,
sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, you're good.
Oh, 2 points I wanted to make is one, I can attest to that. I'm not bilingual, but I've worked in spaces where I was like one of the only people that did speak English around a lot of people that came from Mexico. And the way that the customers would like talk to them, and it's not even like their English is bad, but just the moment that they would see that some of them had an accent, even, you know what I mean, like it was so condescending. I had to step in a couple of times and be like, she's got it, she heard you, you know what I mean, like you don't gotta put all that extra rude ass emphasis. And so I can definitely say that PT, he's got it right, that is one of those things. And imagine how some doctors already try to make you feel stupid anyway, and then you have that white supremacist mindset on some of them, and then you even have that language barrier on top of that. It definitely adds. And in my experience, I would say that I've been dealing with like a case with a car accident, and a lot of the times when I go to the doctor to try to explain like my symptoms to them, especially when I meet a new doctor for the first time to get a new thing or whatever the case may be, there is always this condescending tone and nature about them to where they're trying to, that like they assume that I'm lying, like, oh, she's just trying to get a check, like I didn't ask for this, and it's just this very like you should be fine soon, and well, like you're young, and like because you should be, and it's it's a sometimes a very clear dismissal of the symptoms and or pain that I'm telling them that I'm having. And I've had to thank goodness that I guess I just grew up and had started learning to speak up for myself, because I've had to be very adamant about my care at times, because they will either be dismissive or put it in a way where they're trying to act like I don't need the treatment that I do need, that matches what's going on with me. So I will say that um, I've gone through it and have heard in a lot of different experiences that, people of color, and specifically in the Black community, we don't get the mental health treatment that we need. You're just passed off as aggressive a lot of the time, in a lot of different elements in the medical fields, where we're not receiving the care that we deserved, and a lot of the times contributed to the, research to even, be able to do.
Right. Well stated, Elle Green. Elle Green, could I read some of the symptoms? It's just a few sentences of post traumatic slave syndrome, just so that the listeners and the panelists can kind of know what some of the symptoms are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So, question: what are the symptoms of post traumatic slave syndrome? Difficulty concentrating, feeling jumpy or easily angered, appearing emotionally numb, also called vacant esteem. This includes feelings of hopelessness, depression, and a general self destructive outlook, just to name a few.
I wanted to comment on that too, because I have heard this thing where it was trying to figure out, you know, kind of this disconnects, I guess, specifically between young Black men in our communities with like the drugs and the gang violence. And, especially being a person that makes music, I'm seeing how often, rappers are going, and it's very disgruntling. And um, I heard once that part of that has to do with a sense of internalized hopelessness, to where you're not rationally thinking about your actions, because you're not thinking that there's a future. You're not living for a future. Every day feels like it could be your last day, because there's so many different risks that you're feeling and that are also actually in place, that give you this internalized idea of a young or a fast life, a young death or a fast life. And I feel like that completely relates to that hopelessness that you're talking about, and that idea or that numbness that a lot of us feel like we acquire through certain actions or things that may happen to us in our lives. But I feel like what they really are is just tapped into and or touched to where they inflate and, become bigger issues. But they're always, like you said, Joyce, instilled and inherited and passed down. I'm going to go ahead and get into the messages and play these, and then I would love for anybody else on the panel to elaborate. And Joyce, if you have any more symptoms or anything else that you'd like to add about this study, please let me know.
Okay.
No, the issue is this. The reason why I asked that question, because I've heard a lot of people say, I've asked people, because I know I watch a couple of documentaries with some people that moved to South Africa. They living the life of luxury. Make me want to move too. If I can find a business over there, I ain't lying to you. That's why I asked the question. It wasn't to be smart or nothing. So, I'm sorry y'all took it that way. Holla. All right, so look, to be honest with y'all, I have 3 videos I want to send y'all. I hope y'all watching them. It's called Race and Reconciliation, Part 1 and Part 2, and Slavery and Race. These videos are very good to show what's going on today, and this is just will help you out for the outlook for worldly. Because I know it's for y'all on here that agree in one mind, but everybody doesn't think the same way as y'all think. I would probably call it 50-50 or whatever. So what you do with the other 50. So, but yeah, I wasn't trying to be funny as far as with the go. Wouldn't we move somewhere? Like I say, I've seen people move to Costa Rica, other places down South America, not just Africa. Because I'm not racist to be talking about just move back to Africa. I'm talking about anywhere, Canada, wherever. So holler back. No harm, no foul.
How are y'all doing today?
I'm just saying this. I'm just using this for example, just to make my point as far as why this won't stop, why the masculine milk will always be on top. When the whole, whole Corona thing came out, who did we take? Who word took presence? It was what the CDC and Mr. Fauci. They white milk. So a black man like myself, who ain't a doctor, but I heard black doctors, male doctors, come out and say, no, we'll just do it this way. They got called conspiracy theorists. I seen black men and black women crucify them because of what the white milk said. So until that changed, nothing gonna change, y'all. This is empty words we saying. I just use that for example. Holla. And I'm going to throw this out there. Everybody say, oh, well, we need psychology help. We need this visit psychiatrist. It's only 4% black psychiatrists in the United States. If you think black people are going to tell white people their personal and a private business, it's not going to happen. So, and then I sent all of y'all a demographic to show y'all what's good about that. And I'm just telling you, this is why especially black males won't go. Point blank, period. We already look at white milk a little bit different. To tell them our business, nah, it ain't gonna happen. So, sorry, y'all. It's that mental care. It ain't happening no time soon. Sorry.
I would say with post-traumatic slave syndrome would be the way we look at things as what we call food. For example, dandelions. Post-traumatic slave disorder teaches you that those are weeds. So it has affected your vision. Vision is another way to think about things. So the way that they taught us to see them, putting this sound weed with it, instead of it being connected to herbal principle, instead of it being connected to healing of the liver and stimulation of the pineal gland because of its yellow coloration and the fact that it grows abundantly in our yard. And 90% of us cleanse our body, but we don't take the time out to cleanse our internal organs like the liver. And when the liver is not cleansed, it affects your spirituality, and processed sugar and everything affects the liver. So post-traumatic slave syndrome got us looking at dandelions wrong.
Real quick, I do want to say that Taraji P. Henson did help out creating a foundation specializing in mental health for Black people and in the Black community, and hopefully connecting them with people that can relate closer to them. It's called the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. So if you're interested, Storm Ready, in actually learning something, you could look that up. Again, that's the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? That's all I had to say.
Yeah, the process of mental wellness is over a period of time. You know, my thing right now are people willing to go to seek help, even looking within? Do they even need guidance for that? If you know somebody you love, somebody you don't love, whatever, are you okay is a good start. And it's not to be too intrusive and be in their business, but at least everybody here, you know somebody, how are you? You know, depending whether you feel you can handle the response, you know, you do the best you can. But we have to start at a very minute level, and that's within ourselves and our willingness to care for others. So I definitely just want to put that out. Be proactive with mental wellness. This is a global issue. Anxiety is the number one thing. I just want to add that.
Joyce, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I did. All right. It's a little deep, but I'll say it. So, another symptom of PTSD, as well as PTSS, is avoiding certain places, people, or activities and events that may remind the individual of the trauma or experience, right? And I'm not sure if anyone has watched the movie Beloved. I only seen a little bit of pieces of it. I have not read the book. I was going to buy the book, but I read a little bit of it as a preview, and it kind of it traumatized me, you all, because there was a story in the book of Beloved, and I think it kind of shows us the impact of slavery, specifically on both men and women, but really men, right? So in the story Beloved, not the actual story of Beloved, but in that book, there is a female slave who is grown, and the master's son, who is maybe around puberty age, him and a friend decided that they wanted to sexually assault the grown woman slave. So the black male slave, who was her husband, happened to find them, and these two white boys had her hemmed up, and each of them were suckling her breast, right? And he, as a black male slave, he couldn't do anything about it, and he was really upset about it. And his response was he went mute after that. He never said a word. He was just mute. Like, that's it. He just would not speak a word after that. And I thought that was really, really interesting, right? Because men know inherently that they're supposed to provide and protect. So when you have a whole race of men that are unable to provide and protect for their women and children, what does that do to their psyche, right? Just to know that a woman that you love was violated. He went mute, right? Now, I didn't read about what happened to her and how, what happened, like, was she okay? But I just thought that that was really interesting how the book went into great detail about how he just would just sit down and just stare off into space. That was it. He was checked out. Now, what does that look like today? I feel like that falls down into today of F those bees. And it's easier to just make it seem like you don't care at all rather than deal with the realization that even today you're unable to protect your own women and children.
Ow, Joyce, that hurt. Ow.
Yeah.
Ow.
And I think from a generational perspective, we all, I mean, this is why I asked the women, do you give men enough safe space for them to share their feelings? Just because you never know that overreaction or that emotional, whatever it is something from maybe a childhood trauma or even something as generational as you speak. We just never know. So mental wellness is very real in my opinion. And, women, heterosexual, or even same sex, etc. Cue into your partner and understand that emotional burst might be a little bit deeper, and you have the opportunity to, either help or. So I just want to add that part to it.
I think that that is very telling. I think that that mind frame of feeling powerless is definitely kind of what I speak on as far as the plantation patriarchy. It's seeing this display of power, and it's really, racism and oppression, but it's masked as manhood. So it's trying to obtain that because you really, it puts you in a position to be powerless, and feel like that even more. And I think that sometimes that's our disconnect is amongst black men and black women is like, even if you observe that situation, I've seen movies or situations where like something like that similar happens like that, and instead of going mute, he's just like mad at his wife, you know. And I wonder, when we see a situation like that, like she was assaulted and he was powerless, when do we get to a point where, you know, we don't prioritize one over the other, or you know what I mean, like put emphasis on, you know, see, like uh kind of to piggyback off of what you're saying, Pete, but not to negate it, to like the creating safe spaces for men to tell their feelings. And I think that what we have to understand sometimes, that I see and feel like I experience and see happening, is a woman saying, I was assaulted and you saw me and you didn't do anything. You know, so you already have that correlation. Him understanding mentally that he feels powerless, but because he doesn't want to put that on display, put that powerlessness feeling on display, his response might be, oh, well, what were you doing up here? You know, you should have known better. And that is what I see a lot of the back and forth between our community being. Instead of it being a conversation about pain, it becomes a blaming of what should have been done in a situation when we should be looking at the structure in place. I definitely agree with that. Now, I definitely
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
places where I feel like these things intertwine. And if the claims that you make are of leadership and are of masculinity and power, then yes, I'm going to hold you accountable to these certain things. But the reality is, there's not much you can do in a system that makes it uh, almost impossible for you to do those things.
Yeah, that was very well spoken, Elle Green. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, I was listening to Neely Fuller Jr., right? He's the one that actually inspired Dr. Wilson to write her book, because he was the one that first said that racism is a system, right? So with her being a doctor, she then, and a psychologist specifically, she then wanted to know what was making Black people mentally ill. So she did her research and did her ISIS papers. But anyway, I was listening to a radio show with him, and there were two other Black men. So it was three Black men, and they were being very open, honest, and vulnerable with each other. And they admitted, they were like, what can we do? Like, we're not in any position of power and control. If they harm our woman, what can we do? Even to this day. And I could hear the frustration, I could hear the hurt and the pain in their voices, and I could hear that they genuinely cared, right? But I guess they had to feel that feeling of powerlessness, and hopefully that would motivate them to not say, what can we do, but this is what we're going to do. I would rather them look at it from that standpoint as men and be empowered and say, okay, we're gonna make our neighborhood safe. We're gonna have a neighborhood watch, and it's not, none of that is gonna happen on our block, and they can just do it one street at a time.
To piggyback off of that, and Pete, as the man on the panel, I want to ask you, my personal opinion is, I feel like we've lost a lot of maybe the men in our communities that are willing to die for their cause, that are willing to, you know, do whatever it takes, you know, not in being like in a violent term, but I think of the way that guys see it. They'll be like, well, I'm not going to risk my life to protect somebody else. So we've lost that. If it's the right thing to do and you have to die for it, then maybe that's what you need to do. Because a lot of us have dealt with that risk, you know, in past lives, and our grandparents, and whatever the case may be, they did that. And there was always a risk of losing your life, but they always did what they needed to do for us to be able to get into this position. So as a man in spaces with other men, do you feel like fighting for what's right, even if it ends in death, or, you know, symbolically you losing or having to sacrifice something you care about? Um, do you think that there is still the same amount of men like that less, more? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel there's levels to it. The level being the ground root level, the man from the hood. That if I really go to a community board meeting or the police station, I'm gonna look like a rat, a sellout, etc. F the world, etc. Then you have your middle level, more political type, more fluent. They don't have support because they sold out to the system, and then you have your upper class rich that just doesn't care about middle class or lower class. And they say, yeah, we do so much for the community, but the tax write off is also big. So, in terms of men, what do most men talk about? Day to day women, right? I don't necessarily, and this is what I do personally on my podcast to talk about men stepping up, but where's the revolutionary soul? You have the power, you have the strength, you have the muscles, got the cars, you got all the women, you're good looking, yeah, 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 play great football. What else are you doing? Where are you in community action? At least at the local level, make a community board, or at least look at policy practice, which is something that I'm getting involved in. But no, I'm sorry I was a little bit long-winded with that, but still, I cry for men to step up so women can look at you in a different light, besides the very attractive light, physically and all that extra. So it's just a disgusting whole thing. I'm sorry, I challenge all men, and I do that on my own. It's just not there. Our focus is somewhere else. Our focus is somewhere else. We need you men to step up.
I definitely think that there is a loss of focus. There is a loss of focus. So, what I want to do is go ahead and wrap up this talk with a question. So, first, I want to say I thank everybody in the audience and the listeners for being here. I want to thank everybody on the panel. I learn something new from you guys all the time, and that is so big for me. So, I appreciate you guys being um, thoughtful teachers in this experience along with the audience. So please make sure we're not doing this for nothing. Also, make sure you follow and everything. But the question that I have is, if this is in our biology, right? What ways, and we were talking very broad all day, trying to about the general scheme of things. I want to ask everybody to, and take your time answering. Do you think that if this is inherited, and obviously it's generations and generations of, psychology and biology that we would have to combat, but what way in this lifetime, right now, speaking of individuality, would we have to live our lives in order to even slightly reverse that DNA for when we have kids? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And if it does, whoever wants to start can go ahead and answer it. How could we live in this moment, in this lifetime, to change or even slightly be able to affect this post-traumatic slave syndrome? Or is it impossible because it's so many generations that it would take multiple lifetimes?
If I were to answer that, I would just say I'll take this from Dr. Joy DeGruy herself. Be the healing, right? So if you, as an individual, can know and do your shadow work, you set yourself up for success, as well as those coming after you. So just doing our own work, I would say. I mean, I don't plan on being a parent. I don't know what the future holds, but I do not plan on being a parent. But I know that if I was one, I know that it's no longer about me once I have a child. It's about them. So making that choice and knowing that my child is going to have an even better life than I have right now, and that's saying a lot because I have a great life. So just thinking of others and thinking of generations to come and making sure that my actions are in line with that. So in short, being the healing.
I really love that answer. I agree. I agree. China, what do you think that affects? Because I know that I believe you said that you already are a parent. So how do you feel like, even as a person that has kids right now, that every day somebody could change their biology to contribute to this collective healing?
Honestly, I think it starts with the learning, it starts with expressing your feelings more. It's being more open and being your true authentic self. Starting with you know what I mean? Like, once you start unlearning all those toxic habits and all those, those triggers, and so that people don't have to tiptoe around you and your triggers, you got your triggers down, so that you're more efficient, get things done, and that in turn helps you be able to teach your kids, you know you're you are amazing, you teach them that, they don't have to dislike themselves. They're beautiful. You teach them that they're smart. You teach them that they're good at things. You validate them. You listen to them. You make sure you do better. Um, I think it does start with you, and then you just kind of, keep the ball rolling, and do everything that you can to, make sure you're at least making a couple of steps every day to, move yourself forward with that.
I agree.
Um,
I think you guys are both putting it beautiful. Pete Ski?
yeah. If it's you, Google introspection, self-reflection, understand your value, or get to the point where there are things that you like and things you dislike. As far as children, as a parent, being I have two daughters, raise them. I'm not going to say as I did, as emotionally intelligent as you possibly can. Over time, as they see they're able to mature, it will help them in their later years because they'll be actually logically thinking more than emotional. So that's all I want to say with that. And thank you for the opportunity.
I think that's beautiful. I think emotional intelligence is very important. And I think that that is what is missing in a lot of these spaces sometimes where we try to have these productive conversations. So, to answer the question myself, I would say, I mean, the exact same things that everybody else up here said. I think that um, it's important to work on the community, but if we're bringing it to an individual scale, the best thing that you can do is walk in your light, walk in your strength, and acquire more knowledge because knowledge is power. And whether you're spiritual or whatever you believe in, is staying connected to yourself, and being able to understand the individuality and then the collective, and having that duality so that you don't always feel so drained, protecting your energy, because this is, sometimes I get caught up in the fight or whatever's going on, and so focusing on the peace and letting the peace and the happiness be a state of being, opposed to something I'm chasing in this world where it seems like, they want you to feel like it's out of grasp. I feel like the best way that I do it is to be the healing, be the change, and constantly work on myself and check myself and have these conversations with myself so that I am in tune and aligned and just basically aware. Self awareness and emotional intelligence is amazing. So, hopefully, I want to sometime tomorrow or this week plan another talk on this subject and go a little bit deeper into post traumatic slave syndrome because we had switched topic, so I didn't necessarily get a chance to watch this full video, but I do want to get a chance to watch it because I think that a lot of the time, some of the things that we're seeing when we're in these spaces talking about people in our own community or people that look like us contributing to putting up hurdles and building mountains in front of us, I think that this has a lot to do with it. And so I hope that everybody can walk away with something that they learned. I know that I definitely did. I want to thank Joyce, China, and Putski for another great
Welcome. Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you. Thank you so
Of
much.
course.
Thank you all. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Queen. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I love this. This is really great.
No,
Yeah,
thank
thank you
Thank
for all
you.
the
you.
listeners, everybody that contributed. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
appreciate
I
y'all.
hopefully
Shouts
can
out
have
to the
another talk with you
listeners.
guys.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you, Elle and Queen,
Of
and peace,
course, of
Key
course. You're welcome.
and
Thank you so
audience.
much. I love this. Thank you. Thank you, audience. Definitely. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Happy Monday.